Looking for my other co-host, Santa Cruz Mountain Goat. If you see him, try to bring him up, Red Panda. Otherwise, we'll let
Yeah, you're
Mello
familiar
be
with the process
co-host.
at this point. So I'm going to keep it pretty high
Give
and
me
tight for
about
this,
cool. I'm
guys.
gonna
I'm going to go through all the
As you
evidence.
go through
You
it,
can also
I'll lead
watch
you
my
to try and see
stream. We're going to be
like
doing
where
that
we're
at the
talking
same
about killing the
time.
nest and whatnot.
And then after we go
I
through the
take it what you
evidence, we'll
probably
just
want
take
to go through your
questions for a little
evidence, and
bit.
maybe a
I'll
question and
probably
answer
stop
phase at
recording
the
on my
end.
stream
Yeah,
after
you're
that,
familiar with the process at this
so
point.
that
So
I
I'm gonna
can
keep it
kind of
pretty high
have
and
it be a
tight for
little
this,
more
guys.
consolidated.
I'm gonna go through all the evidence. You can also watch my stream. We're gonna be doing that at the same time. And then after we go through the evidence, we'll just take questions for a little bit. I'll probably stop recording on my stream.
Almost ready.
After
Probably
that,
1 more minute, guys.
so that I can kind of have it be a little more consolidated.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Almost ready. Probably 1 more minute, guys.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm struggling to be able to figure out how to do the stream at the same time. There doesn't seem to be a significant way. I don't know how people pull this off when they're host.
Yeah, I'm struggling to be
Yeah,
able
it's
to
the
figure out
same
how
thing.
to
If you're
do
host,
the
you can't.
stream at the
Doesn't
same
seem like you
time.
can
There
do it
doesn't seem to be
correctly.
a significant way. I don't know how people pull this off
Weird.
when they're host.
How are we gonna pull this
Harder
off?
than that one day with
I
the Julian
think what
Doyle
I'm gonna
thing where you're
do
able
is
to,
I'm going to just have to do it through my phone, and then I'll have to try to sync up the audios afterwards, which I think should be fine. Okay, so yeah, so either you can either listen on the space here, or you can watch on the YouTube stream, and check it out either way. So give me another 30 seconds. I'm just getting finally prepared here. And if you guys saw, it looks like Kim.com had replied in the message to one of my most recent posts. I do want to give him a shout out because he was one of the first big, I guess, influencers to kind of take the information seriously and give you guys a little background that, I talked to him personally. He's somebody that wasn't just a believer, this UFO kind of unknown advanced phenomenon, technology phenomenon was not something that he was just, interested in. He just saw the weight of the evidence and wanted to talk to me. And we had a discussion about it, similar to what I'm going to go through with you guys today. And he became convinced of the authenticity. And that's why he's put out that huge bounty for anyone who can, show and prove that they're the ones who theoretically hoax these videos and that provide the source material to go along with them. But we'll talk about that here in a minute as well. The outline, the way this is going to go down, I am going to go through the evidence. I unpinned this from my profile. I've added some more stuff to the evidence list. Most likely will be a new version coming out next week of all evidence and some theories as well. After I run through all this, I bet it'll probably take 30 to 45 minutes. There's about 13 pages or so. Then we'll go ahead and we'll take questions. So this is going to be a little bit of a different format than what we've done in the past. And then you guys can ask me whatever you want to know, but just keep in mind as well that, I have a lot of appearances out there that you can watch to make sure, if you have questions, a lot of stuff gets addressed, but not in any one particular piece. So we'll get started in 1 minute. Yes, and thank you as well to people like Cliff High, also known as Uncle Cliff, supposedly by people, and other big influencers who have been following the evidence, retweeting it. I know Chuck, I believe it's Costello is his last name. I could have that incorrect. Also has promoted a lot of our stuff. People have been getting tagged with community notes that are incorrect. I appreciate everybody fighting back against those community notes. Community notes should never be for subjective opinions. Community notes should only be for factual content. So people that are out there claiming that they have their opinions, that should be stuff that gets put into, replies, not stuff that should be tagged for community notes. That's how we get fake fact checks. That's how disinformation happens. So we'll get started in about 30 seconds here. Okay, guys. Welcome to the All Evidence Review. This is Ashton Forbes of MH370x. We have a big team of people that have behind the scenes been putting in a lot of work, and this thing has been picking up. We have been going viral. We have been trending with MH370 and MH370x recently. So I want to thank everybody, followers, supporters out there who have been making sure that this story, that these videos do not fade. I think that we are potentially dealing with the largest verifiable conspiracy of all time, potentially the most important videos of all time as well. And what we are talking about here are two videos that reemerged on the subreddit UFOs back on August 7th or 8th, depending on your time zone, that have been proven to be on the Internet Archives dating all the way back to 2014. The first video, which is referred to as Satellite Video, Airliner and UFOs, has a received date, March 12th, 2014. Uploaded date, or published date, if you want to think of it as that, May 19th, 2014. The source says protected on it. This information is very relevant because it sets us a window of time of opportunity to be very narrow, between 4 days and 72 days for production of these videos. The second video that was released, again, by Redisite Anon, and there may be earlier versions, but these are the earliest ones we've been able to find now almost 10 years later, is the archived MQ-1C Gray Eagle with a thermal layer added with a Raytheon multispectral electro-IR camera. This version has a received June 5th, uploaded June 12th date on it. So the window of opportunity for this one, it appears that the first video, they potentially had to be convinced that what they were looking at was real or what they were looking at all. And then the second video, the time frame is only 1 week after they received that second video. Now, the requirements to understand these videos to even be authentic, we had to have several things even to get to the point we're at today in 2023 to understand the videos to be real. We had to see the 2017 DoD Navy UAP videos that were declassified that show drone FLIR, forward-looking infrared. The videos that we see in our MQ-1C Gray Eagle has the HUD data, that the numbers and everything that you see on there removed. And it has this thermal custom layer that is from the software added in over the top of it. Without these videos, we wouldn't even know what military footage would look like unless you worked in the military on these type of equipment. We needed the Trump satellite image from 2019 that he posted on Twitter, which showed an Iranian, I believe it was a missile silo or a rocket launch that we had attacked or destroyed. And the satellite image had been reverse engineered that the data came from USA 224, which was sent up in 2011. This is relevant because we have also been able to figure out that USA 229, with its sister satellite, was in the correct location at the correct time to send the data that we need in our satellite video. Now, we can see similar resolution capabilities in that Trump satellite image, which is very important. A lot of people thought that Trump picture had to be fake because they expected more atmospheric distortion. And what we've come to uncover is there's a system called SBIRS, Space-Based Infrared System. And that this system is essentially the Google Earth video playback, global persistent surveillance monitoring. That the Trump picture is most likely just a still from that system. And it is sending data, and it's not actually looking through the satellites, sending data to a computer program that's able to build that Google Earth video playback. We also needed advanced theoretical physics concepts that have only emerged from 2020 and beyond. Macroscopic quantum coherence, Bose-Einstein condensates, and then the wormhole papers, which tell us that to induce a wormhole, we don't necessarily need exotic matter, that they could be humanly traversable, meaning that if a human were to go through a wormhole, the gravitational effects are not going to kill them. And then lastly, which is very important with respect to the science we're going to be discussing, is that you might be able to create a double-sided electromagnetic barrier around an object that would allow it to transport through a wormhole without being destroyed. We also need to understand superconductivity, more importantly, room temperature superconductivity, which became part of the zeitgeist in the last few months from LK99, which is a metamaterial produced from copper and lead that when cooked together, theoretically will produce a room temperature superconductive state. Now, what we are going to present is an alternative hypothesis that we don't need metamaterials to induce room temperature superconductivity. That's what we've come to learn as part of the investigation, talking to scientists and engineers like Salvatore Pais. But without that, we would not be able to understand the requirements in order for the orbs in our videos to be floating. Lastly, we needed to understand AI, advanced computer processing, advanced computer programs. We believe that in our both of our videos, we are not seeing any types of beings or humans inside these orbs. These are being either remotely controlled or controlled by a computer program. That is why we see this 120-degree 0-point sinusoidal pattern as these orbs traverse around the airplane, using the airplane as the center of mass. We also potentially need quantum computers to be able to store all this information that they are processing to fulfill the role and purpose of that they are conducting. Now, going to the videos, starting with the video facts. The videos have been proven to date back to 2014 from the archives, as well as people who saw them, including myself. I saw the drone footage, the colorized one. I had no idea what I was looking at back in 2014. This is why I got very interested when I saw the footage recently in August. I said, oh, I remember seeing that. And then when I saw the second video, this is one of the first times ever when I had seen any types of UAP videos over the last 6 years that I had seen two different videos from different perspectives of the same exact event. The satellite video has perspective changes 8 different times in it. Part of the reason why it's hard to see the cloud movement is the perspective changes 8 times, so each perspective is only a few seconds. We can see satellite coordinates in the bottom left visible in 6 of those perspectives. Those satellite coordinate shifts prove the location is in the Nicobar Islands. Even if you were able to invert or mirror the footage, you would not be able to invert or mirror the satellite shifts. Those satellite shifts indicate that the plane is going generally in a south and then eastern direction. This means that the location cannot be in the South Indian Ocean, assuming that we were somehow able to add a minus sign. It has to be in the Nicobar Islands. In our satellite footage, we see 2 perspectives, or 2 side-by-side videos. These are not duplicated. This is 3D stereoscopic video, which would require 2 satellites in close proximity on the same orbital trajectory. We have recreated the orbital trajectories of USA 229, which have this criteria met, that are in the right location in the Nicobar Islands, staring down at the agreed-upon flight path of the plane at 1840 UTC, in the exact location where the plane supposedly turned into the South Indian Ocean. The MQ-1C Gray Eagle's a General Atomics make. We actually have somebody who knows the experts in General Atomics and says that they believe that this is exactly what these drones look like. The MQ-1C thermal is added using this advanced electro-IR camera from Raytheon. The purpose for SBIRS, Space-Based Infrared System, and SIGINT, Signals Intelligence, is tracking boats, planes, electronic signals monitoring intelligence, and battlefield awareness. Alternative sources exist in higher quality that were posted later online that point to none of the users being the original source. There's a hole that forms in the cloud to the left of the plane in the satellite video after the zap, which is very small, but could be that something has flown through the hole there, or could be something else related to our event. The video coordinates in them change, but they don't change when the mouse moves. It only changes when the perspective moves. This is important because this indicates that there's a second analog being used to move around the coordinates in our videos. The video coordinates also have a satellite designation to them, next to them, NROL-22. NROL-22 is USA 184, which was sent up in space in 2006, which is consistent with the first time the SBIRS system was brought online. NROL-22 has a Millennia orbit. The Millennia orbits are useful for relaying electronic communications. So we believe that this is our command satellite, one of the first ones sent up in space related to this system. The mouse in our satellite video moves off the screen both in the bottom left and in the top right, indicating a large field of view. The SBIRS system is viewing custom video software. It displays only coordinates with 2 axes, indicating we're tracking the ground. It's not looking at the plane in space, otherwise we would have a Z coordinate axis. The satellite video is in 6 frames per second, indicative of a high field of view, which requires more resources in order to render it. The plane is making a left-hand turn and descending in both videos, consistent with the maximum capabilities of a 777-200. This is some of the most difficult part to fake, according to a VFX expert that claimed to have worked on Top Gun Maverick. The plane's altitude is low, based on how close they are to the cumulus clouds, which only form between 1,000 and 5,000 feet. The MQ-1C drone is cropped out of the satellite video just at the top of the field of view. The user closes the window in the satellite video after the plane disappears, indicating that this was actually not recorded in real time, that they came back and they recorded this later on to leak it to us. Googling the SIG-INT payload, quote unquote, the top hit references the MQ-1C Gray Eagle, which is our drone. Regicide Anon defended the veracity of the videos in the later uploaded videos by other users. When the drone video zooms in, we can see that the clouds change size and there's clear parallax. The drone is most likely deployed from either Car Nicobar or Port Blair, and the direction of travel is consistent with the angle of the camera view from the drone video. We believe the Raytheon camera is an ANDAS2 electro-IR camera that has the capability of onboard software that can add the thermal rainbow palette that we see. Now, some additional speculation. We speculate that the Cyber system is producing this video using the data from USA 229. It could also be using other data, as we've shown from the Cyber's video. It is using geostationary satellites that are constantly scanning the whole Earth, Millennial orbit satellites that are relaying information, and low Earth orbit satellites that can get very high quality data that is high resolution. The smoking gun is USA 229. Again, at the right location, time, apparent angle with sister debris satellite capable of taking stereoscopic video at 1840 UTC in the Nicobar Islands. The cameras on both of these equipments are made for filming these events. The original source may have come from a private forum. The mouse acceleration that we see when the mouse moves is consistent with a plural view 3D mouse with stealth or soft mouse 3D controllers. It could also be some type of trackball or some type of laptop center button as well. The key point being there's an acceleration there that is different from standard mouse acceleration that we see. The screen capture of the terminal is running at 30 frames per second. There's a Citrix terminal running at a default of 24 frames per second, streaming a remote virtual desktop at a resolution of 24 frames per second. This we can see from the mouse, which is at 24 frames per second. And then it's remotely navigating around this very large resolution field of view that's playing at 6 frames per second. What this all means is that somebody was actually logged into the actual database, doing a screen recording while in the Citrix session, looking at that background. They weren't using a camera, and they were not using a camera phone or anything like that. What this also means is that the leaker of these videos was likely caught and went to prison because this information would be logged. The leaker was likely a U.S. military operator who saw the event in real time and had emotional reaction. Now, what it would take to fake these videos. First of all, I want to start by saying we have a $145,000 bounty, $100,000 put in by Kim.com, $20,000 put up by the Investigate Earth podcast, Chad and Sherry, and $25,000 put in by an anonymous follower who is clearly wealthy and ran for higher office once before, and I've verified their identity, but I'm not going to make that public at this time. The requirements to collect this money is that you need to find the supposed hoaxer of these masterpiece videos, and you need to provide the source material. They would not have produced this final product in the first try. They would have had to have an entire hard drive filled with their work efforts leading up to it, and all you have to do is bring that with proof that that stuff comes from 2014 prior to these videos. Now, in order to create the videos, you would only have between 4 and 72 days to create them. Whether or not you believe that the Regicide Anon receive date of March 12th is accurate, or if you believe that somehow Regicide Anon lied on the receive date or is somehow implicated in the cover in the hoax, then that would be May 19th, which is the confirmed published date of the satellite video. There's no reference to copy from. This is very important. You see a lot of people promoting a fake VFX debunk out there saying they can convert the VFX into our video. If somebody created this, they would not have that luxury. So what those people would be required to do is, if you want to confirm you could do it, go ahead and take that VFX without looking at our videos, try to blindly convert it into the effect that we see in our video. This is essentially equivalent to taking a monkey and giving them a typewriter and waiting until they're able to produce Shakespeare. So this is a very difficult event. This is not a situation where you're copying the Mona Lisa. You'd have nothing to compare it to. You would have to know how to create these realistic volumetric clouds that we've talked about, how to accurately animate the cameras that we see, how the clouds form at low altitude because we have these cumulus clouds out there. You would have to know how to accurately light the volumetric clouds. The zap that we see in the satellite video accurately illuminates the clouds in the foreground and in the background, which I'll say right now, we speculatively believe that that's because the electrons in the area are being energized by the event. You'd have to be able to recreate exactly what MH370 looks like. You'd have to know what the turn radius of a Boeing 777 is at a certain altitude while in descent. You have to know where the plane would have been at the exact time. Accurate coordinate shifts relative to the location to 5 decimal places. How to animate those coordinate shifts. What the weather was like in the Nicobar Islands, because we've proven that it was accurate low altitude clouds in the area. How to accurately create the smoke trailing the plane using particles in both videos. What the thermal looks like at a level that would fool the experts. How to animate the heat signature in the AC units that we believe are showing the heat signature in the belly of the plane. They would have to have knowledge of military classified systems completely unknown to the public. That the military is using a Citrix environment. You would have to know the frame rate difference captured by or created by capturing the satellite footage during a Citrix session. You'd have to know the specialized mouse that they're using relative to that acceleration we discussed. What satellites the US has in operation and what their payload is. You'd have to know what false color IR looks like. A lot of people have wondered, why is the satellite video show this zap in a white effect? That's because we're not looking at thermal there. We're looking at an IR camera in false color IR at nighttime that is able to produce it in whatever visual color spectrum they want. Because the purpose there is not for that detailed information like we have in our drone. The purpose there is for battlefield awareness and monitoring. You'd have to know how to create the 3D stereoscopic imagery we see in the satellite video, how to animate the orbs, how to create the particle system for the orbs in their forward-facing gravity engine where they're creating their own geodesics, how to animate the final frames where the orbs flatten, showing a gravitational lensing effect, and the plane blurs, showing acceleration. You'd have to know what the MQ-1C drone even looks like, what the payload on that drone is, where the payload is located to get the exact camera angle. You'd have to have better VFX skills than the lead VFX artist of Top Gun Maverick, who said that this person would have front-ran their work by 4 years, and that the hardest part is recreating the actual capabilities of the plane to scale. Marvel VFX expert says it would take at least 6 months, 4 to 6 months with today's technology. That's Jeffrey Ford. Better understanding of physics than most PhDs. You'd have to have an understanding of advanced mathematics, including the sinusoidal patterns that we see from the orbs. And then, sort of as a joke, to be coy, you'd have to know how not to use low-quality 90s video game 2-dimensional VFX in a 3D rendered environment. You'd also then have to know that we would never find a plane even 9.5 years later, otherwise the entire hoax would break down. Now the flight path. Let's talk a little bit about that. Now I want to start by noting that we started by trusting all the official data and systematically ruled it out as not factual or itself riddled with inconsistencies. I will add that I read all 300 pages of the Whisper Route, all 300 of them, and I initially trusted it to be true. And if you go back to my earlier spaces, you'll find that I was never comfortable with the information in the Whisper Route after the radar data went away. It is essentially nonsensical. I don't think that a plane would be hugging the coast. That's not how you avoid radar. I don't think it would do a cut back to see if anyone's behind it, nor do I think that that would even be able to be deduced from this type of radar, from these types of pings. The most important part that I thought was silly is that the Whisper Route has this plane doing a holding pattern, which is very obvious that what happened here is they didn't have a way to explain why there wasn't any additional pings, so they just said, oh, it must be sitting in a holding pattern. The more logical answer is that the data after 1840 UTC is not accurate, either or misinterpreted or potentially spoofed. So we lost trust with that Whisper data and the Inmarsat pings after 1840 UTC, which is the location and time that we believe that our satellite videos are occurring. The satellite pings switched to IOR at 1559 UTC, 30 minutes before the plane takes off, and never switch back to POR despite the plane flying east towards it. What do I mean by this? There are two satellites that Inmarsat could be pinging. One in the Indian Ocean and one over the Pacific near Japan. Even though this plane is flying towards the POR satellite, it never pings it ever again. This is important because what happens is now we lose the capability to triangulate the position of the plane. If we have pings from two different satellites, we can tell exactly where the plane is at any given point in time. With just one ping, this means that we have to use an arc to determine its location. The plane goes east until 1721 UTC, and the plane should have pinged that POR, but it never did. The pilot says, "Good night, MH370" at 1719 UTC. This is 1:19 in the morning. 64 seconds later, 1721 UTC, the plane disappears from all civilian radar due to both ADS-B and ACARS data being shut off. 1730 UTC, last radar contact, according to the transport minister from one of the press conferences. Radar says that the plane makes an impossible altitude changes from 5,000 to 55,000 feet, meaning that the radar data, including the altitude data, becomes unreliable because the plane cannot make those types of altitude changes. The plane can't even go to 55,000 feet. The radar data was not released for weeks, but yet it was sent to the Americans within 5 days, according to the press conference we found. The armed forces knew much earlier that the aircraft could have turned back, and that is why the search was expanded to include the Straits of Malacca within a day or two. And yet they still continued to search in the South China Sea for days after the event, wasting resources knowing that this plane had turned around because they had it on military radar. The military did not confirm this until much later due to resistance from senior officers and government needing to step in. Quote unquote, "We wasted our time in the South China Sea." The defense minister claims they knew it was a civilian airliner, but they didn't know it was MH370. The same defense minister claims that they knew it was civilian somehow, but it was not hostile. The only way this makes any sense is if they had communication with the plane, because otherwise you could not rule out a hijacking scenario or even a rogue pilot scenario. In order to know it's not hostile, you would have to have had some communication with them. I will add as well that the same defense minister argued with an interviewer who questioned why they didn't send up jets. And he said, "Well, would you send them up to shoot it down?" Which she says, "Well, I didn't say that, you did." And he asked, "Well, why would we send up the jets?" And she says, "To track the plane. Especially if you have a rogue plane, why wouldn't you send it up there?" And that seems to be the most logical course. Now, why did they not send the plane up? Potentially because they knew it was an emergency event. Therefore, they knew they didn't need to send the plane up. It was not a hostile situation. The plane changes directions when it goes dark. It heads directly to Penang Langkawi Airport, the closest airport that can accommodate a 777 in an emergency. There's a Wired article out there that says that this would argue be the correct destination, correct decision in an electrical fire. When the plane gets to Penang, the co-pilot's cell phone pings a local cell phone tower. Now, we have speculated that it may be that the lights on the runway were turned off. If the lights on the runway were turned off, it would not have been safe to land. It could also be possible that if the plane was on fire, the landing gear could have been damaged. And it could be possible as well that they couldn't dump fuel and land on their belly because of the fire on board the plane. The last Malaysian military radar is between 1815 or 1822 UTC, 200 to 230 miles west by northwest of Penang. But reports the next day had indicated that the loss of contact from Subang ATC was at 1840 UTC, which is the location and time of our videos. There's anomalous ping data at 1839 UTC and subsequent limited data for the 5 hours afterwards. This was first reported by myself. Now, why does this plane not crash into the South Indian Ocean? No debris field found. That's the biggest piece. You can't not have a debris field for a 777 crashing into the South Indian Ocean. We should have found it the very next day. We had satellites everywhere. We were even able to find the Wagner Chiefs or General's jet that had crashed, which is much smaller than the 777. Most expensive search in history and most extensive search in history did not find a single piece of the plane above or below water. There was no black boxes found, despite them being able to produce a signal for 30 days at depths of 20,000 feet at a very specific frequency that cannot be misidentified. The SOSA system would have heard it like they heard the Titan sub pop where the Navy said nothing for 5 days while oxygen counters were running on television. Western Australia and Diego Garcia both have hydrophones that also did not have any acoustic detections. Indonesia, as well as Australia, and now we're also adding India, have radar systems that should have seen the plane either turning into the South Indian Ocean or flying in the South Indian Ocean. None of them did. It's an active shipping route. There's no witnesses that saw the plane there, despite supposedly crashing in the morning in the daylight hours. Some people might argue the ocean is really big. Well, the official flight path has it running out of gas with fuel exhaustion. There's actually nowhere else for this plane to go. The official searched everywhere along the final arc, along the flight path, in the South Indian Ocean, Malacca Straits, Andaman Sea, and South China Sea. The initial narrative claimed that this plane did a 90-degree swan dive, which is not possible for a plane. And even if it had, it would have exploded when it crashed into the ocean like that. It's not going to go flying or pouring right through the water and not break apart. This was very quietly later to a 14-degree change. None of the redundant ELT beacons, there's 4 of them, activated on crash, despite the fact that they should have. 19 families of victims signed a statement saying they could call the cell phones for up to 4 days of the victims. One of them even proved it on national television. A CNN expert went on and claimed that, oh, this could happen because it might be pinging the old cell tower. Well, not for 4 days, and not for 19 of them. In fact, those cell towers only go out into the ocean several miles. And if a phone is underwater for about 30 minutes in the salt water, it's going to die. And after it's under a few feet of water, you're not going to be able to get a radio frequency signal anymore. Some social media sites also had the passengers still being online. Now, some may argue, well, what about the debris? We did find some debris, right? Well, again, I just want to reiterate, no debris found by the official search above or below water. That's a fact. The debris that was found by people not related to the official search. They searched with at least 42 planes and 39 boats from over 10 different countries, and they found nothing. The debris that was found, and only 3 pieces had been confirmed tied to MH370, is consistent with a fire and teleportation event that we've put forth from this advanced science. Some of the debris that was found actually even had scorch marks on it. And the debris that had scorch marks had a honeycomb consistent with a Boeing airplane. There was even a B777 fire suppression device that washed up in the Maldives several weeks after the event that didn't go reported didn't get investigated even though it has a serial number on it. The flaperon, the piece that essentially set the narrative that this plane had crashed into the ocean, was not matched with the unique serial number. The unique serial plate was missing despite it being screwed in to the flaperon. So this piece could be from MH370, but there was also an exact replica, a 9M MRK, that was purchased by GA Telesis, scrapped in October of 2013, just 6 months before the plane went missing. That's an exact same model as MH370, also purchased from Malaysia Airlines. So it's possible that the flaperon could have been from a similar plane that has similar part. Now, why is this MH370, some might ask, which I think is probably the least controversial aspect of all of this. It's the only missing 777. The thermal is an exact match of the silhouette of a 777-200ER. This is actually the banner in my Twitter profile. The color tone matches MH370, or matches Malaysian Airlines. It's white on the top, dark on the bottom, which we can see from the satellite. Satellite coordinates actually put it on the real agreed-upon flight path of MH370 at around 1840 UTC in the Nicobar Islands. Again, this is the smoking gun. Note, this is the suspected location of the turn into the South Indian Ocean. Once again, I'm going to repeat that. Purpose of SIGINT, Signals Intelligence, and SIBRs is to track airplanes just like this. U.S. government had to be tracking a rogue 777 in a post-9/11 world. The Malaysian Minister of Defense, in the Day 5 press conference, is asked, U.S. spy satellites are in the regions. Have we have contact with them? To which he replies, yes, yes. The U.S. military has been proven to have the satellites in the air. We've proven that conclusively. And we have the U.S. military confirming that SIBRs provided data to the intelligence community to help solve the mystery of MH370. I ask you, how did they solve that mystery? Now, let's debunk the suicide myth, despite the fact that I think that it not crashing into the South Indian Ocean already debunks the suicide myth. Everyone stood up for the pilot, Zahari, including officials, wife, and coworkers. 18,000 flight hours. He loved his job, extremely experienced pilot. There's no indication of suicidal intent anywhere in the flight path. A similar suicidal event, Germanwings 2015. Pilot crashed the plane within 10 minutes of locking out the co-pilot. If it was suicidal, he would have crashed the plane immediately, not gone on an 8-hour joyride. The crew oxygen has 1 or 2 oxygen tanks at a 100% flow. The estimates of this oxygen lasting are between 30 and 120 minutes. Not long enough for an 8-hour joyride. There are several ways to enter the cockpit, including a keypad override, disabling the electronics bay, and panels that break out when the plane depressurizes to equalize the pressure. Captain Bellany suggested that whoever was in command of the aircraft would have had intentionally disconnected all 4 electrical generators and APU simultaneously. Practically impossible for a single person to disconnect all 4 generators within 64 seconds. Zahari was actually rostered to fly MH370 to Jeddah on February 4th, 2014. The route in his simulator closely matches MH370 to Jeddah, with a diversion potentially to the South Pole or South Indian Ocean. What this means is that the indication that he practiced the flight path for this route is false. Flying over your hometown, Penang, is silly. The flight path indicates an emergency event, not a suicidal event. The passenger oxygen mask would only last for about 25 minutes. So in order to keep the passengers alive, they would have to fly low, which we'll talk about when we talk about our witnesses. The narrative, again, of running out of fuel is contrary to a suicide event. Suicide, you would crash the plane immediately. You're not going to have it run out of gas. Now, why is this a lithium-ion battery fire? 221 kilograms of lithium-ion batteries put together the same day the plane took off. The batteries skipped 2 security screenings. This is 500 pounds of lithium-ion batteries in the cargo bay. The fire event is corroborated by 19 witnesses. The cargo compartment bays were designed to withstand flame source of 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit or over 900 degrees Celsius for at least 5 minutes. A lithium-ion battery fire could escape containment from the cargo compartment. The fire cannot be extinguished by the cargo containment's halon fire suppression system. There's a heat signature that we see near the exhaust panels by the landing gear. The AC units may be flushing smoke from the plane. Smoke trails coming from the back of the plane in both videos. Altitude, again, is too low for contrails. I have a source who has experience testifying on Capitol Hill, who's willing to confirm that the plane could last for over an hour while battling the fire. The batteries may have been packaged unsafely based on the ATSB report pictures. The B777 fire suppression device that washed up in the Maldives could be connected to MH370 and could be one of the fire suppression devices they were using to mitigate the ion battery fire. The key witness, Catherine T., had a sighting of a glowing orange plane consistent with a chemical reaction from the halon fire extinguishing devices releasing bromine, which is a halogen gas that glows orange. There's a mayday at 2:43 a.m., only reported in Chinese news. 2:43 a.m. is converted to Malaysian time is 18:43 UTC within 3 minutes of we think our videos happened, of an intercepted communication from MH370 that the plane is quote-unquote attempting an emergency landing and disintegrating, which is consistent with our videos, consistent with the event we've put forth, and the witness. The FAA changed the rules to no longer allow lithium-ion batteries in the cargo of passenger planes in 2015, just 1 year after the event of MH370. Even after this, there's more than 1 lithium-ion battery fire in passenger planes per week in the United States. Covering up the fire event is only explained by the technology that was deployed. Otherwise, there'd be no reason to cover up such a mundane event. Now, the main witness, Catherine T., she had a blog post in 2014 and another blog post in 2018. Her sighting was recreated by automatic GPS. I spoke to her personally a few months ago, and she told me that she thought her sighting was at 1840 UTC. She told me she felt pressured by the experts to change the time of her sighting. In her sighting, the plane was descending from the beginning to the end of the sighting. The plane was flying low, and it was recreated to be between 2,000 and 10,000 feet. The glowing plane had no navigation lights, meaning the power was potentially still out. She saw 2 other planes with navigation lights at cruising altitude. Her sighting lasted between 5 and 10 minutes. The plane had an orange glow, as we've discussed. She also saw black smoke resembling a contrail coming out of the plane. She could not see any fire or flames, consistent with our videos where we do not see any active fire. I asked her about the silhouette. She said the silhouette of the plane matched the thermal from MH370. She did not see any other boats in the area, though she mentioned to me that if the lights had been off in the boats, she would not have been able to see them because it was essentially pitch black. She did not have her radio on to hear Mayday calls. She went in to put the kettle on, and when she came back out, the plane was no longer there anymore, and all she saw was an orange halo. The recreation of the sighting has the plane circling around the boat in a counterclockwise location coming from the east, consistent with the direction of travel of the videos and the direction of travel of the known flight path of the plane. Now, all the other witnesses. Mike McKay sees the plane on fire at roughly 1720 UTC within 1 minute where the plane goes dark. He sees it low on the horizon from roughly 300 miles away at the maximum distance, likely due to the fact that that there just rained, making it perfect conditions to see as far as he could. He sees it on fire for 5 to 10 seconds and then it stops. His sighting is misreported as he'd seen the plane crash. He later on says clearly that he did not see the plane crash. That was just an assumption that he was making. People along the coast of the South China Sea hear loud noises at the same time, roughly 1720 UTC. This is going to be consistent with lithium-ion battery fires exploding, those 500 pounds of lithium-ion batteries in the cargo. 10 minutes after the plane goes dark, there are 8 fishermen, 10 miles off the coast of the South China Sea that see an unusually low-flying plane. This would be consistent with the pilots trying to fly low to give the passengers enough oxygen to be able to breathe in a depressurization event, completely counter to the official narrative that the pilot would have been trying to suffocate the passengers. There's also communication at 1730 UTC received by an unnamed 777 pilot going to Tokyo claiming to hear the MH370 pilot or co-pilot. This casts doubt on whether or not communications were really disabled. There's a Chinese hack. China actually released satellite images, which appear to show 3 orbs. The official explanation is that these pictures came 1 day after the disappearance and that they were of the South China Sea. However, they searched in the South China Sea and did not find any debris. It is speculated that this could be spycraft, that China was telling the United States, we know that you did something. We checked the satellite, and the satellite actually would have been able to see the location in the Nicobar Islands of our videos. The same day, March 9th, China hacks the Malaysian government, stealing crisis minutes as well as classified information on MH370. I can't understand why there would be classified information on MH370 the day after the plane goes missing, unless China knew there was a cover-up at play. Other pertinent information relative to the case. 2 fake passengers using stolen passports that changed their appearance, Iranian nationals. Supposedly, the cover story is they were trying to find asylum and head to Amsterdam from Kuala Lumpur. But it doesn't make any sense that they would be flying to Beijing. This just increases the risk. There are direct flights directly to Amsterdam. They were spending enough money that it wouldn't have been a matter of trying to save money either. The satellite coordinates only indicate the Nicobar Islands because the videos predate the South Indian Ocean narrative. On March 13th, 2014, 1 day after the received date on our Reddit Anon video, unnamed U.S. officials started leaking information to the media stating that MH370 flew into the South Indian Ocean. They started to build a narrative. Sibbers builds 3D battlefield which ignores satellite movements. Some people wonder why the satellites are not moving. Again, the same reason why when you're looking at Google Earth, you don't see the satellites move. Because it's taking data and building it in through a computer program. Satellites can see in the dark, false color IR. Total darkness, moon was down, sun was set. There's no shadows visible in our satellite video. The zap, again, indicates nighttime because we can see this zap accurately illuminate the clouds in the foreground and in the background from our satellite video. If it was daytime, we most likely would not see that zap or the illumination come from it very clearly at all. The White House was calling Malaysia every single day after the event, despite the fact there was only one American passenger on board. Obama visited in April, and this was the first time in 50 years that an American president had visited Malaysia. He spent several days there. I had a source that reached out to me that I deleted this post to protect the source, and the source mentioned that there's a general who was in charge at the time who was shown the videos by their nephew and reacted in a way that confirmed their authenticity. This general went on to be promoted to be the highest ranked military officer, despite the fact that we never found anything about the plane, was advisor to the president, joint chiefs of staff, the secretary of defense, and then later on went on to be board of directors at Lockheed Martin. Rolls-Royce silence. In the same video where the Minister of Defense admits that spy satellites were in the region and they had been in contact with them, also admits that Rolls-Royce had engine data and says that they were in communication with Rolls-Royce about that. Rolls-Royce has never released this data publicly. Both engines transmit data, and there was a source in one of my replies that I believe mentioned that this data is transmitting every few seconds. So Rolls-Royce would have the data that would either confirm or dispel the conspiracy. ACAR's data sets were really the only footprints left after the ADSB and ATC radar data and audio were lost. So it became very difficult to find and track this plane. Now the motive. I know a lot of you guys want to know, why would you do this? Okay. 20 Freescale Semiconductor scientists and engineers on board. Freescale Semiconductors broke off from Motorola, which is the ones who actually owned the batteries that were on board the plane, in 2004. 20 people flying in the same plane from the same company breaks almost every company's policies for exactly situations like this. This plane was likely doomed. It couldn't land in Penang for whatever reason. Landing in the ocean would have broken apart the plane, and most likely everybody would have drowned in the middle of the night. We found a 2005 National Security Agency report on commercial room temperature superconductivity development chips that references Freescale Semiconductors 9 times. This report also says in it that this technology could be available by 2010 or 2012, but only if the U.S. government provides funds to make it happen. Freescale Semiconductors also launched a major initiative dedicated to serving RF power needs of the U.S. aerospace and defense sector, directly tying these engineers and scientists to the U.S. defense. So the motives then are possibly preventing the intellectual property from going to China. If this is somehow an espionage event that was set up from the beginning and the fire was started intentionally, it could also be preventing the loss of this intellectual property that is directly related to the technology we see deployed. It could also be testing the technology on a doomed plane, as many podcasters have speculated to me personally. Now the orb analysis. We see 3 orbs in our video approaching the plane at estimated Mach 3 speeds. They are using superconductivity, room temperature superconductivity, potentially, in order to obtain quantum properties and ignore gravity. If you reduce your mass to 0, then gravity, you're no longer affected by gravity. We see a non-radiating barrier around the orbs. This is the field, essentially like a bubble underwater, that is displacing them from space-time. They're generating their own geodesics, possibly by an accelerated vibration through a pulse current, as explained in Salvatore Pais' patents. The dark cold lines are in front of the orbs, not behind the orbs. There's no visible known propulsion mechanism that we can see in the videos. The dark lines may be changing the pressure of the atmosphere. The heat signatures in the orbs are actually spinning on their axis. The orb triangle pattern is consistent with a 3-phase sinusoidal 440-volt electrical system at 120 degrees that creates a 0 point at the center. Sinusoidal waves. Tipler cylinders are predicted to produce sinusoidal distortions in space-time, emitting gravitational waves in a repeating wave pattern. The orb's pattern encircles the plane over time. We believe this could be mapping the plane or preparing it for what's about to occur. That orb pattern changes to become a vertical ring around the plane before the phase transition begins. The phase transition occurs as the orbs bend and move towards the plane in the final frame. We can see gravitational lensing in the frame before the phase transition, as well as we can see the plane accelerating in blur. So why is this teleportation, or superluminal speeds as I'll refer to it, moving faster than the speed of light? We see the plane disappear from space-time instantly in both videos. The zap is a cold endothermic event in the thermal, meaning it's an absorption of energy. This is not a release of energy like an exothermic event that we would see. Again, this is a transitional phase state change. It's not a black hole because nothing gets sucked in. It's not cloaking because the smoke trail stops when the plane disappears. E equals mc squared rules out annihilation because the mass and energy has to go somewhere. Teleportation could be to another dimension, planet, future, or just another point on Earth, which is what we have speculated. We cannot break causality, travel to the past, unless you were to change timelines or dimensions. Otherwise, you would have the paradox of, killing one of your parents before you were born. But time dilation is real. You can travel to the future. You can also potentially hold the plane in superposition where it could be released at a later point in time, according to physics. There may be limitations to this technology. It may not be unlimited. You may need an open area, i.e. an object in the air, in order to pull this off. The teleportation may be to hide the plane. It may be to put out the fire, because this cold endothermic event can absorb energy. Runaway lithium-ion battery fires are so dangerous because they have a huge amount of latent energy. And this is why when you put them out, they keep coming back up and up and up again. Because the victims of the family's phones were ringing, this makes it most likely that the plane was still somewhere on Earth in the 4 days after the event. Now let's dig a little bit into the science, at least my favorite part. The double slit experiment is the greatest mystery in physics, which proves quantum teleportation is real. What we get from the double slit experiment is non-locality, quantum entanglement, and quantum teleportation of information. In order to scale this up, we need a unification theory of quantum and macro. Time dilation is real. More mass equals slower time. Now, what I mean by this is watch the movie Interstellar. When Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway go to the planet that's near the black hole, and they come back an hour later, 20 years have gone by for the person who's on the space station. This is because when they move near the mass of the black hole, their time is slowing down. If they were to look at the space station, they would see the space station moving at a very high rate of speed relative to them, to their frame of reference. Contrarily, if the person on the space station is looking at the planet, they would see the Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway moving in slow motion. Wormholes have been shown to be theoretically possible by at least 3 scientific papers, but again, syntax is very important here. And we don't believe that what we're looking at here is a wormhole, but we do think that the effects that we're seeing are very similar and somewhat related. All these wormhole papers show that exotic material is not necessary, that you could create a thin shell, double-sided shell that could safely transport an object out of space-time. Room temperature superconductivity can be induced via metamaterials. LK99 is one example potentially, or repeated pulse vibrations from transducers. We don't think that we need metamaterials in order to achieve room temperature superconductivity. The orbs may be mapping the plane in their spherical pattern. Computer program explains the pattern. They're not being manually controlled. The orbs are a field. What we're seeing is the non-radiating boundary. This is not a solid object that we're seeing. Now, there is potentially a solid object within that boundary, but we cannot see it visually because the boundary is blocking our view. These combined orb toroidal moments can cohere electrons. So orbs become part of the relationship with the plane, acting as electrons around the nucleus, which would be the plane, which extends unshielded electrons at the point of transition. When the electrons are driven from equilibrium, they begin to self-organize into a matter wave. Solid-state objects may be able to achieve macroscopic quantum coherence. When the orbs converge at the last minute, they create an azimuth as they collapse on the plane. The orbs converging are what's triggering the transitional phase state change of the plane. Low temperatures allow the electrons to couple and move as one in that matter wave. The fractal toroidal orb moments create a unification of forces that induce the phase singularity. The properties of an object denote the behavior regardless of size. Quantum properties may include mass reduction. Since time is a fluid symmetry, as indicated by time dilation, a faster flow of time, no inertia then equals no gravity. The plane again, the plane and the orbs blur in the final frame, indicating acceleration and possible mass reduction, as the final frame has a slightly smaller silhouette than the frame beforehand. Less mass equals faster time, which means the ability to achieve high speeds. Zero mass objects require very little energy to move, even to the speed of light. After the phase transition, the object can be placed anywhere. It will not adhere to the laws of conservation of momentum. The technology may be capable of destroying the entire planet. And now I want to go into a little bit of Salvatore Pais science and some of the patents that he's put out there and scientific papers that will corroborate what I've just said. High-frequency gravitational waves. These can generate high-power, high-frequency gravitational waves, HFGWs, by high-frequency accelerated axial rotation, spin, and or accelerated high-frequency vibration. Gravitational wave production by propagating electromagnetic radiation through strong magnetic fields. This can enable macroscopic quantum coherence, namely possible quantum mechanical behavior of macroscopic objects. Multiple high-power, high-frequency gravitational waves were to be focused on a particular point in space-time locality. They can induce the space-time curvature singularity. Generating a gravitational well is possible in the flight path of the objects. Controlled motion of charged matter under rapid acceleration, transients may lead to room temperature superconductivity. Nuclear fusion may also be engineered. Energy may be amplified to such a high degree as to generate a space-time curvature singularity, leading to the total destruction of a planetoid or asteroid. I want to at this point reiterate that these papers predate any of my investigation, and I only became really aware of them after the investigation, after we had already put out the science that I read previously. They corroborate much of the science that I've mentioned. The next one is high energy electromagnetic field generator, HEEMFG. The artificial generation of gravity waves in the locality of the spacecraft can result in energy mass removal. It is possible to reduce a spacecraft's inertia, allowing for smooth sailing through the negative pressure, repulsive gravity of the void. The utilization of such high power sources for space power and propulsion generation. Now, that's the science part of it. The next part is, I think, what I'm part of the investigation that I'm most proud of, which is Agent 370. The identity we believe is Lieutenant Commander Edward C. Lin. I'm going to reiterate, the leaker was most likely U.S. military personnel, most likely an operator, probably had an emotional reaction to seeing the videos because Regicide Anon received the footage 4 days later after the event. They removed the HUD data. They cropped the drone out of the satellite video. They used the rainbow palette on the HUD data so that we could see more information. They likely had to convince Regicide Anon that the videos were authentic, and that's the reason for why the publish date is 8 to 9 weeks later. They may have thought they were actually looking at UFOs, only later to be revealed that it was actually U.S. technology. They potentially didn't think that they were damaging U.S. intelligence to the degree that they were. Lieutenant Commander Edward C. Lin was part of the Special Projects Squadron 2, the VPU-2 Wizards. He flew in the Poseidon P-8, as well as the Lockheed Martin EP-3 Ares II, which has real-time tactical SIGINT, signals intelligence again, and full motion video intelligence. The crew fuses the collected intelligence along with offboard data for battlefield situational space awareness, and Lieutenant Commander Edward C. Lin's specific role was to relay that information to upper command. He had a code name for the charges against him in the case against him called Rogue Archer. Every article essentially mentions signals intelligence in it. The last deployment was February 2014, but he gets reassigned March 25th, 2014, just a month later, just 2 weeks after the events of MH370 disappearing. The investigation into him began April 2nd, 2014, a week after his reassignment. His next assignment was the Brig. In May 2014, he left 2 flight manifests in his flight suit from a deployment that included search and rescue code names. The defense argued that the classified information in question is available on the internet. He was arrested in September 2015. MH370x investigators have speculated that the reason why he wasn't arrested until much later is because they were trying to throw people off the scent. If they had arrested him earlier, people would have been able to connect that he was connected to MH370. They might have even been able to connect him to the videos. There was an FBI sting against him in August of 2015, just 1 month before he was arrested. They did a honeypot, tried to get him to give information away where they could use it against him. Charges would have resulted in life in prison. First major incident of espionage by an active duty member of the U.S. Navy since the end of the Cold War. He had a heavily redacted charge sheet. We weren't able to find anything about the dates or any information about the charges. He was privy to the Navy's black program portfolio. He had top secret and compartmentalized access. On Facebook, he's friends with General Flynn. He had knowledge that could be extremely useful to potential U.S. adversaries. The government had to come out and admit that it wasn't really a spy case and that there was no evidence that he exchanged any sensitive information with anyone from China. He was abused while in pretrial detainment. The agents didn't properly advise him of either of his crimes or his right to an attorney, that he was any of the crimes he was suspected of, or his right to an attorney. And the emails listed for why his pretrial detainment should be upheld, it was just fairly mundane events. It seems as though they couldn't show the real evidence for why he couldn't be released. The judge said he showed a dangerous pattern of disclosure of classified information, but didn't point to any disclosures of classified information in their judgment. The defense, all the charges against him had been obfuscated. For some reason, he was given a prostitution charge, despite the fact he was facing life in prison over espionage. After they were unable to prove the espionage case, he was essentially forced into a plea deal where he got a 9-year sentence, where he admitted he accepted responsibility for just the 2 charges of mishandling classified information that he was actually guilty of. He ended up working with the NCIS and FBI and had the last 3 years of his sentence suspended. So I FOIA'd the FBI and the NCIS. My FOIA to the FBI has never been returned. My FOIA to the NCIS was returned within a week. A search of our collective databases and identified 2014 investigative report response to your request. We have carefully reviewed the documents and withheld them in total under FOIA Exemption 1. Exemption 1 protects from disclosure information about, quote-unquote, matters specifically authorized under the criteria established by the executive order to be kept secret in the interest of national defense or foreign policy. This was an Obama-era executive order. Obama actually loosened FOIA requests, but only a few exemptions prevent them or allow them to be withheld. Since this wasn't a spy case, the foreign policy angle makes no sense. It most likely has to be related to national defense, which is what the technology we see in our videos implicates. Now, the disinformation angle. The videos were censored on August 19th from the subreddit UFOs. People constantly make fake compassion arguments. Trying to find the truth hurts the families of the victims. Manufactured consensus. They use sock puppet accounts to post fake content and have it get upvoted. Narrative control. Censoring those telling the truth breaks down the brainwashing. Can't have that. Forum sliding. The account that posted the VFX debunk that everybody to this day still sticks behind. It was called Icy Slide. Literally a play on words. Intelligence community forum sliding. Forum sliding is using fake accounts to post and then replying to pre-positioned postings with simple comments, such as, "Thank God this has been debunked." This brings the unrelated postings to the top of the forum list, and critical postings slide down. Social contagion. Fake content spreads through word of mouth and peer pressure. Individuals adopt the beliefs as their own without even knowing the source. Many people don't even realize that the only person to have claimed to have found the VFX is a guy named Mick West. Addressing the VFX debunk, the Icy Slide account that posted it was a 1-day-old sock puppet account that did not defend anything in the post. They had to get manual approval from the moderators of the UFOs subreddit to post it. The simple answer to anyone who claims that this visual effect matches on even a single frame is to simply say, how many pixels match? To date, not a single person will answer this question, because in doing so, they would have to admit that they are not a match. Even the Corridor crew says it's a perfect match, and then right after says, of course it's not a perfect match, contradicting themselves. A 2D asset would not be used in a 3D rendered environment. The videos are perfect. There's no discrepancies anywhere. Then there's no reason that they would use a low-quality 90s graphic in such masterpieces. The videos would actually still be real even if the VFX matched on a single frame, which it doesn't. Prosaic comparisons of the Zap had already been included an ink drop, a supernova, an energy field, a video game from the 90s, and a donut, which actually I would argue matches better than any of the others. None of these show that the videos come from these things. There was actually an old Reddit post that they originally tried to argue that the ink drop was what our effect was for our old school investigators out there until they found a VFX that gained more traction. Most likely they're attempting to debunk the Zap because they know that they need to be able to deny the technology in order to admit that the videos are authentic, which will eventually come out. Now, addressing some of the other debunks that are out there, again, there's no discrepancies despite hundreds, if not thousands, of community individuals searching frame by frame. You need a full story to explain the videos as hoaxes, beginning with Regicide Anon somehow being in on it or otherwise lying about the date they received it 4 days after the disappearance, which is far too short for reproducing these videos. People claim the clouds don't move. They do move. They just move slowly. You can actually see the clouds move. We've proven that several times over. There is parallax. We've proven that as well. It's not daytime. It's nighttime. The smoke flows naturally. The jitters, people said there's jitters in the contrails. They're not contrails. It's smoke. There is no jittery effect. The stabilization or any editing to the videos will allow you to see things that aren't really there. You have to use the original videos. There is no duplicate frames either. That also required editing in order for them to get to look close. We've actually also proven that the duplicate frame thing, even after they modified the frames, still are not exact matches. The MQ-1C Gray Eagle does experience turbulence after flying through the wake of the plane. Prosaic debunks are all countered by the fact that there's a Citrix session logged into the actual spy satellite database indicating that the base footage is real. Now, why is this reverse engineered versus non-human intelligence or even potentially just our own technology? First of all, I just can't believe that we could be this secretly advanced without some sort of help. There's no reason to do such an extensive cover-up for just an anomalous event. Most likely, Edward C. Lin was put into prison because it is our technology. If it was just UFOs or even if it was fake, they wouldn't have thrown Edward C. Lin in prison. They wouldn't have tried to charge him for life in prison. And they certainly wouldn't have put him in prison for 9 years on a plea deal. The assets filming are both U.S. military. They either got extremely lucky filming this if it's non-human intelligence, or it's just an operation. They're filming before the orbs even appear. The orbs are moving at Mach 3 speeds, roughly 2,000 miles an hour, so the plane is not outrunning these orbs at all. The pattern is explained by a computer program. The fire event indicates a rescue motive, a human motivation. In my mind, you can't attribute human motivations to a non-human intelligence. And perhaps most importantly, science and our investigation can explain everything we see in these videos. So, people want to know, where'd they take the plane? Now, I'm going to go ahead and preface, this is all speculative at this point. I'm also going to say at this point that I want to extend the deepest condolences to the families of the victims who have been lied to and never told the truth over this whole period of time. If I had to bet, I would say that this plane somehow got to Diego Garcia military base. This base has 1,700 military personnel, 1,500 civilian personnel. Mark Dugain, Kate T, The Witness, and basically every conspiracy theory said that they flew this plane somehow to this base, but they couldn't explain how it got there. It has enough space to hide a 777. There's a Maldives sighting at roughly 6:15 a.m. local time, where the islanders see the windows and the blue and red stripe of MH370. The pilot had Diego Garcia in his simulator. It's not open to commercial aircraft. There was no departures 72 hours after March 8th, 2014, according to a Facebook post that we found. The flight logs were destroyed by water damage on Diego Garcia in July of 2014. That's pretty weird. It had underground facilities, according to a Black Vault FOIA request, that it was a CIA black site that could hold and transfer prisoners. There was a message posted from somebody claiming to be Philip Wood on the website 4chan of a black picture saying that he's being held captive, and the picture EXIF data points it at Diego Garcia military base. There's tens of millions in construction to black construction for dredging and other activities. Labor in Southeast Asia is very cheap as well. If you look at the the base in Google Earth Pro, very little changes on the surface over the last 20 years, indicating the construction is happening underground. Lockheed Martin even got a contract for upgrading power and water. There are photos of Diego Garcia that, on the Facebook page that looked vaguely similar to the crew. There's sources that claim to me that this place's magnitude is more important than Area 51. Its location makes sense. They supposedly have radar data that can see for 3,000 miles that would be capable of tracking the plane from its takeoff throughout the entire path of the plane. They also have ground-based electro-optical deep space surveillance at this base as well. One of the few sites in the world that has this. Now, what about the passengers? The families of the victims never believed the official story. A lot of them are on CNN and other large news organizations months after the event, saying that they never believed the official story. Settlements likely forced the families into silence. In the United States, there was a lawsuit that was put in against Boeing and against Malaysian Airlines. And the judge that ruled against this lawsuit being tried in the United States is now Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. If the passengers survived, they could have been returned to their home countries in exchange for their silence. Some could have been living in Diego Garcia. The American passenger, Philip Wood, most likely would have gone into witness protection and assumed a new identity. According to Florence Changi's investigation, a nephew of the pilot was told that his uncle was quote-unquote collateral damage. The French father was told that there was 2 AWACS in the area and the Americans knew exactly what happened to the plane. A former head of Indonesian police was told what really happened to the plane by his counterpart in Malaysia. So I want to thank you guys all for listening to this version of All Evidence. Now, we're going to open it up to questions. I'm going to go ahead and let my my co-host here start bringing people up, and we'll start answering questions. Okay. So thank you guys. I'll take a look at the chat as well from my live stream, and people can tell me if they have any questions that are coming here as well. Someone's asking in the chat, how come cell phone data wasn't pinpointed days later if they were still ringing? Again, 19 families signed a statement begging the countries to actually look into the fact that cell phones were ringing, and they didn't look into them. Red Panda, go ahead. Great question. I think I would like to see the Rolls-Royce data. I think the Rolls-Royce data, if it's still available, could prove what really happened to this plane. That's probably the most damning evidence that might be out there. But I think that I'd use this as a springboard to say that there's people that know what really happened to this plane, just like potentially Lieutenant Commander Edward C. Lin. And if any of those people were to step forward, especially at this point, given the totality of the evidence that we've put forth, I think it would break the whole case wide open. We just need somebody to be brave and speak up. Good question. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so again, that because of the scenario we've put forth, that all that debris could be from MH370. I think that our scenario is one of the scenarios that takes by far the most amount of evidence out there and can explain it. But again, that could also again be from this other replica that was created, that was bought, that was scrapped, at least 10 or 20 years too early by GA Telesis. So really the strongest evidence is that we never found a debris field, and the official search found nothing, which is just impossible. I think that a lot of people don't wrap their heads around the idea that a 777 can't crash into the ocean without leaving a debris field. Yep. Oh, wow. Thanks a lot, Ocean. Appreciate it. Yeah, we've debunked all the VFX stuff. It's not, there's no pixel perfect matches. I'm not sure why people keep imagining this. So this seems to be like a red and black dress versus a blue and whatever, blue and white or whatever. There is no pixel perfect match on any of these. So I think that they would have to produce their work on this. There's a lot of disinformation out there right now, people pretending that these things match. So, the biggest thing out there in general is that if you think these videos are fake, you should not be attempting to debunk them in any respect other than trying to find the person who is the hoaxer. If they're fake, then there's a hoaxer out there that produced it. So, yeah. No, so I'm saying that there is no VFX in these videos at all. So just because two things are similar does not make them the same. These types of effects are effects that happen in nature all the time. We can see them from supernovas. And there was somebody that actually did level 39. If you go take a look at their posts, they found a bunch of different effects that you can match up like that. So the only way that somebody can disprove these videos at all right now is finding the supposed hoaxer. We have hundreds of millions of views. We have $145,000 on the line. There is no excuse. We're not going to be entertaining any more VFX or prosaic explanations for them. Okay.
Some hands. I beg your pardon. We'll just get the hands first, and then we'd love to. And great to see you again, Tig. We had a wonderful conversation the other day or earlier today. I guess who can keep track. But yeah, as mentioned, Benedict had his hand up first, and then Shai. So let's get to Benedict.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah,
Just wanted to
thanks.
let you know, I don't have the hand up thing. I'm on a desktop right now, so I'm not trying to be a dick.
Okay,
Just
Tig's
let
out.
you
No
know.
problem, buddy. Yeah, I understand that the desktop experience is brutal, but we'll get you in right after Shai. I promise.
Okay, yo, thank you, Ashton. By the way, I mean, like, once the truth has all been revealed, right? What's next? What's next for us? What are we gonna do next?
Yeah. So once the truth has been revealed here, I mean, we haven't gotten the truth admitted to, right? And I don't know that the U.S. government can even admit this footage to be real. So we have to make it self-evident. We have to get the information out there to as many people to the point where everyone just knows the official narrative is nonsense. We've proven here with the evidence beyond any doubt. Now, what I want to try to do is I want to get a congressional hearing. The reason why I want a congressional hearing is that we can have an official investigation open up. I don't ask anyone to believe anything I'm saying. This evidence is verifiable. If we can get the NRO, the FBI, NCIS, or even the CIA potentially to open up the classified information, we can authenticate this stuff. All we need is know the data about something like USA 229 or see their official records in the MH370. It's just being classified from us right now. So what I think is we don't need any more UAP hearings. This might be controversial to say, but I don't think there's an appetite for more UAP hearings. What we can do is if we can confirm the conspiracy, as a byproduct, we can get the technology to be revealed, which will reveal the reverse engineering programs related to those UAP hearings.
Okay, but after that, once that has been done, what's next?
Well, then we get prepared for what's next. We change the world, right? We take this technology and we reshape the world with it. We don't need cars that run on fossil fuels anymore. We're not going to need planes that use fossil fuels. We can have new sources of power that are perpetual. We can have free energy. We can have fusion power. So for the people that are younger, this technology will change everything about their future. And those are the people that I want to reach out to the most. Because if you want to live in a world that is completely different than what we have today, we need this technology to be made public, but it's very important that we use this technology in a responsible way. As I've said before, this technology could lead to the end of the world. I think that a lot of people will think about UAPs and the disclosure process in terms of nuclear power. We need to think about it in terms of something that's scaled up 100 times more powerful than nuclear weapons. And if we think about that, then we can start to write legislation that will, make sure that it's used responsibly. And that's what I think that we have to be doing. That's the discussions that we need to be having. And that's really where this is all going to lead. Good questions.
Very
Great.
cool.
And
Shai,
Shai?
you had a hand. Oh, yeah, Shai, you had a hand up. Are you still wanting to speak?
Yes, I'm sorry. Hello. I lost my hand there for a second. Hi, Ashton. Hi, Red Panda. Hi, Mello. I have got a question for Ashton, actually. I mean, I've been following him since he started speaking, and he's doing brilliant, isn't he? He's getting better at it every time. My question would be, sweetheart, if there are a couple of people that you could speak to, no matter who would you love to put in front of you?
That's a good question, Shai. I appreciate you very much. I appreciate that we've been having discussions since I had less than 1,000 followers, I think.
Yes. We
Yeah.
thought you'd grow up.
Yeah, you did. And everybody else has been following from the beginning. I appreciate it, but everybody who's been coming along for the ride as well. But the people that I want to talk to the most are obviously the people that can get the information out to the biggest audience. So I'll use this to say that, a lot of people didn't want me to talk to Alex Jones because he has a lot of baggage that comes along with him, but he has a huge audience and people that are willing to listen to the evidence. We are not going to prejudge anyone based on what the media tells us. So people that I would love to talk to are going to be people like that, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, the people that are like Lex Friedman, who can have a very strong intellectual conversation. Joe Rogan. If we go to Joe Rogan, then the whole world's going to end up knowing the truth. His audience is that large. And I don't want to make this a political thing as well. So if there are people on the other side of the political spectrum, I would love to be on a show like Bill Maher, where there's a panel where we can actually talk about the implications of this type of technology in front of an intellectual audience. But ultimately, I'm willing to talk to anybody who is going to put the evidence out there, big or small. And I appreciate alternative media in general because I think that alternative media is the truth. Now, with respect to the government side, I'd like to talk to anyone from Senate or Congress. I do have people already trying to back channel me into some of those types of conversations. But just as you guys can understand here, this is a lot to take in. This is a huge conspiracy that has huge implications and consequences for lots of people that are out there that are covering this type of stuff up. So it's not going to be an easy just getting in there. It's a whole baggage that has to come along with these videos as well.
Hey, Ashton,
The more I see people trying to shush you up, the more I want you to win more. I can't help it. It's just the advocate in me. And the more I'm grateful that you've got the vocal testicles to stay in the game and don't let them beat you down, mate. The harder they scream about you, the more you probably onto something. So I'll leave you alone.
Yep.
Thank you, and keep going, sweetheart.
Hey, Ashton, I have a question for you. Has there been an aircraft the size of a 777 or 747, one of these heavy-duty large aircraft that disappeared in no parts and nothing has found of them? They're completely gone?
Yeah, I'm not sure. So, I'm just a normal guy that has been investigating these videos. I know a lot of people have given me historical references to things that are similar. I really don't even bother trying to look into a lot of those because there's already so much here to unpack. It's already too big. So trying to connect this to any other incidents really only gives an opportunity for people to try to discredit the situation. and try, because then if they can discredit those other situations, then they can discredit this one as well. But what I do say always with these types of events is that if we can prove these videos to be real and authentic, then obviously we'll lend a lot of credit towards any other historical events and any other anomalous events that people have seen.
Great, thank you. And let's remember to keep to hands, and we're next going to go to Tig. And if anyone else is on desktop, I guess just let us know if you can't raise your hand. Tig?
Cool. Thank you so much, folks. Ashton, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your candor and your fucking super articulate. So I appreciate that very much too. I'm just gonna go over a couple things real quick, and then I'm gonna ask you a question. What I want to go over first is the first podcast that you went on to with the Concrete Boys. The first one was with Julian. Okay, I admittedly did not see that, but what I did see was the reaction from Julian. And by the way, Ash, I am on your side, so stay with me here, bro. The reaction was a very bold, loud, frequent set of tweets that proclaimed their victory over you, like 100%. I was like, oh, this Ashton guy must be full of shit because these guys are so confident. And it reminded me of how Bush reacted to their quote unquote victory in Iraq in 2006 after they had been there and won nothing. Yet he was on a massive battleship with a huge victory banner and everything. That's what it reminded me of. Now let's go to the second one, the one with Danny. I watched that one actually. It was fucking grueling because he was so obviously abrasive, biased, and totally unopen to anything you were saying. It was, to me, the most obvious shutdown job I've ever seen in my life between these two podcasters who are definitely very good friends and definitely work together. So my question after this is, I don't think that the CIA or anything like that would be heavy-handed enough to be like, oh, let's go squash this. Let's go pay these two motherfuckers, right? That would not happen. But as we've seen through other censorship type of businesses censorship, I can't speak, apologize. Censorship type executions coming from the government. What they do is they use non-government third-party either NGOs or like we just saw in the recent files that were released by Michael Schellenberger, they use third-party intelligence communities like the CTI League, which was just brought up by Michael Schellenberger. Now, my question is, do you think that those two gentlemen did that on their own volition? Or do you think that there's a third-party sort of NGO sort of situation happening here that people want to shut you up?
Yeah, great question. No, I think there's definitely influence there, especially when it came to Julian. I mean, he's connected to all kinds of spooks. I could tell right away that he was a wannabe FBI agent, and the way that he was acting. It took me until later that night when I had checked into this garbage hotel that I realized that it was clearly a setup interview from the beginning. And I was already prepared with my statement. I think that he discredited himself completely in his reaction. Like you said, when you boldly proclaim something like that and then you end up just being completely wrong, that's how you completely destroy your credibility, which I think happened to both him and Danny. Unfortunately, Danny, he's best friends with him. And I think that a lot of these people think that the truth is determined based on popularity and, agreeing with people, which is kind of like a mental rot that we have in society today, especially with younger people, unfortunately, that seem to be succumb to peer pressure in that way. Now, do I think the CIA directly reached out to Julian, et cetera? No, I think that they reached out through their cohorts, people like James Fox, potentially also people like Jim DiOrio, who Julian was talking to literally on speakerphone right in front of me, which was super weird. So weird that I took down the guy's name while I'm looking at the phone in front of me. I do think that, yes. Yeah, Jim DiOrio is a legendary spook from the FBI who's now, third party. But once you're a spook, you never stop being a spook. From what I've learned from my own back channeling now, and as people have reached out to me as part of this investigation, that, yeah, there's a lot of money that changes hands for people to do certain things and be influencers out there. And this is how they manipulate them. And they know how social media works. So they manipulate these YouTubers, etc. Wouldn't surprise me at all if the Corridor crew is also directly implicated like this. You know, Julian told me firsthand that a major studio was going to recreate the videos. He was referring to the Corridor Crew. Obviously, they failed miserably in that attempt and realized that they weren't going to be able to do so. And that was the reason why they then decided to try to, like, you know, just admonish me, try to claim me to be a UFO guy, which couldn't be any further from the truth, of course. And so I think that we have to be very careful when we see these kinds of attacks. Like, this is exactly what I expected, is this type of discrediting. You know, what they realize that it's a game of psychological warfare where they are trying to attack me and not the evidence, because they know that the body of evidence is so overwhelming and that they can't address it. You also notice that they don't say my name unless they really have to. You know, they'll try to call me something else. They won't try to use my name at all, because if they use my name, then they just draw more attention to the evidence. And like you had, they realize that, oh, what those people are saying is all nonsense, right? So this is very advanced disinformation techniques that are being used. But the good news is, like, these spooks or whatever, they're outdated. Their techniques are very transparent, and I don't think they've ever seen a movement like this ever before, where we have such a strong following of people that see through this type of stuff, that see the weight of the evidence and keep battling for it. And I think that they're just kind of shook in terms of what to do. And I think that when you saw Julian's emotional reaction afterwards, really gave away the game. I mean, if you listen to, I urge you guys to listen to the space that I was in with him and Danny and TJ. I mean, these guys are just completely delusional. They have no concept of what real people are like. You know, in their minds, I call it Redditor brain, where Reddit has been so censored and so much misinformation that people don't know what's real anymore. And they think that people on Reddit agreeing with them are reality. And then they get to the real world and they're shook because they're realizing, wait, everybody doesn't agree with me? So that's my official answer to all of that. Hope that helps.
And to that point, real quick too.
Oh yeah, thank you very much. Love
active...
it. And you can kick me off, whoever's the host. By the way, you can kick me down. I'm good.
Okay. Well, just to your
stay
point,
with us, buddy. Yeah.
There's an active smear campaign against Ashton basically since he came out, and in that space he just referenced, Julian did tell us that, like, he was kind of being influenced by like multiple people with data points that were propagated by the smear campaign, like right before, which is something they do. And I think a lot of people recognize that both of those dudes have a bunch of conspiracy people on, and they've never had an episode like this where they're kind of like ahead of time, like taunting Ashton and like, we're going to take this guy down, it's over for him, you know. And they've had like Bigfoot people on. So I think a lot of people did recognize there was some fishiness going on. And like I said, even Julian Dory kind of said that, like, yeah, multiple people reached out to him to say like, oh, you're going to get bot swarmed. And Ashton's never bought bots. That's something that this group does. So just wanted to point that out too.
Yeah, I want to add to that real quick too, is that, yeah, of course, I've never bought bots before. You'll realize that a lot of people project their own actions. So when it comes to these bots, it's most likely they actually use bots themselves. And that's why they think everybody else uses bots. I've been told by multiple people, almost every podcaster I talk to has people talking to them, telling them not to talk to me, making up claims that I've stolen somebody's work. There was actually a podcaster I talked today, right after they posted on Twitter, told me they got a message claiming that I was CIA disinformation. I mean, there's literally an army of people out there trying to prevent me from getting the word out to people, trying to prevent me from talking to people, and then trying to convince people. I think Julian admitted there was 5 different people that told him that I was using bots. Like, this is a coordinated effort of disinformation that's being pushed out there. And that's how it manipulates people's mindsets. So this is the reason why I stream in real life. This is why I'm so open and honest about everything I do, and why I do so many podcasts, because you'll be able to see direct and consistent and consistency from me in everything that I say. Let's do some more questions.
Fantastic. Next, we have a semi-attractive guy who can try to make you laugh. His name is Vink. What's up, man?
Thanks for the introduction, man. Yeah, I just need to ask you something. I have a question and I have a theory. First, I'll get to the question. So basically, you obviously must have seen the video which the Corridor crew has uploaded on their channel, right? So one point which I could not understand is they say that contrails or smoke. I obviously know that they're not contrails. Okay, contrails form at 26,000 feet. They are, that is smoke, which we see in the videos. So the person says that, smoke should not be showing up on the thermal videos. Is it true?
Yeah, so Corridor Crew, one of their debunks was that smoke wouldn't show up in the videos, but they're looking at something cooking something. So we're talking about lithium-ion battery fire, which is spewing toxic chemicals into the air, which is not going to be the same as if you're just cooking a steak and watching the steam come up. It's completely different elements that we're seeing there. So I actually was able to even find an article that mentioned that you have to use IR for lithium-ion batteries to determine when they are going to be destabilized, or what's the right word I'm looking for here, where they potentially could have an explosive event. So I do believe that the lithium-ion battery smoke would be visible in IR, and we've been looking into that more. But ultimately, the answer is that yes, we are going to be able to see whatever we're seeing here is real. So we know it's not contrails. It can't be. It's literally impossible. The only other possibilities are exhaust, which I believe would dissipate much quicker, or again, this smoke, this dark smoke that is corroborated by a witness who's on a boat right in the same area. So I think that this idea of comparing and using something else that's different is yet another mechanism of disinformation, where it pushes away from the fact that we have these lithium-ion batteries spewing all kinds of toxic chemicals, and then claiming that, oh, well, when I cook something, I don't see it in this IR is not the same as what we're potentially dealing with in our videos. But that's a good question.
Okay, so now the theory part. So basically, I was looking over the videos over and over again. Okay, I have been obsessed with this conspiracy. So basically, I was looking at the thermal videos, and what you see is the plane is leaving not one but two trails. Okay, I will send you the screenshot. I wish I could share my screen right now, but okay. Yeah. So basically, what I saw was that the plane was leaving two trails. So is it at all possible that instead of the smoke leaving a trail because of the fire, is it at all possible that the plane was dumping fuel? Maybe that also explains the not landing at Penang, what do you call it, narrative. Basically, they did not land at Penang because the plane was full of fuel, and you just told us that you can't do any landing if the plane is full of fuel. So maybe what they did was they just followed protocol. They said, okay, you know what, we'll fuck off towards the ocean, and we'll be dumping fuel. And then, you know what, maybe sometime later we'll take a U-turn once we've dumped enough fuel and head back to Penang and make another shot at landing. Is it at all possible?
Yeah, so this has been asked. I don't think this can be fuel. The fuel is going to be affected by gravity. It's going to fall to the ground. And what we see in our smoke trails here is it's staying stationary in the sky. So it's very unlikely. I do think it is possible they would have dumped the fuel before trying to land in the ocean, for the same reasons why you would need to dump it before you land in the ground. Because if you don't, I think there's a very high risk of there being a chemical reaction. Right now on my stream, I'm looking at pictures of the plane where the problem is that these trails are not coming from the engines. You can see very clearly there's nothing right behind the engine after the heat signature. The smoke trail actually doesn't even appear to really line up with the engines very well. So it does appear in my mind to be coming either from the vents that we see. There's two vents on either side. There's actually several vents underneath the plane. But ultimately, right now, we haven't confirmed that, and it's going to be very difficult to confirm in general. I think that the key evidence is that we see something coming out of the back of the plane. Can't be contrails. It being exhaust doesn't make a lot of sense because it would dissipate much quicker. And we have a key eyewitness that sees dark smoke coming out of the plane. So ultimately, it's going to remain a little bit inconclusive and speculative, but we can rule out some of those things.
Okay, and before I go off, I just want to say I'm a huge fan of your work. Basically, I genuinely regret that, Mick West and Danny Jones and even the crew for that matter, have released these three videos on their own YouTube channels, which has been fucking spreading this misinformation. So anytime I try to approach any person with, the idea that, what, MH370 might have been involved in a conspiracy or cover up, they just shove that video in my face, and it is fucking annoying. But good work on your side, man. Just keep on going and just keep on going, man. I'm a huge fan of your work. Keep on going.
Thanks,
Good
Vink,
luck
man.
to
I'll tell
you.
you what, Vink
Appreciate
sounds very attractive, not just semi-attractive. Love you, Vink.
Yeah,
Well,
thanks, Vink.
Thanks, man.
being so humble helps the attractiveness. Not to be weird about it. Okay, we have. Thank you, sir. We have Ulrich. Nice to see you again, friend.
Thanks for having me on. Have a
Hey,
good day,
what's up?
guys. Bye.
Hey, what's up, guys? Can you hear me all right? I have to use my AirPods. Sometimes the audio is really bad.
You're a little quiet, but it's working out just fine.
All right, I'll try to speak up extra loud. Yeah, Ashton, thanks for putting in all that work. It's a ton. It's awesome for people to follow. Maybe I missed it, but there's some optical lensing around the plane right after the orb slingshot around it. Have you looked into that? Have you noticed it? And does it maybe suggest that the orbs are not functioning as electrons themselves, but radiating the plane, maybe through sound, maybe through electromagnetic thing, just sort of turn the plane into a spaceship rather than themselves functioning as some sort of resonance?
Yeah, thanks, Ulrich, for your question. The reality is I'm still learning about the science. That's probably the area I'm the least comfortable with in general. And on my video right now, actually, I think I snapshot it. I froze it at the exact moment you're talking about, where you can see the flattening of these orbs here as well. I think there's definitely still more to be discovered in terms of what these orbs are exactly doing, if it's just mapping it or if they're doing something else.
Ashton, I'm so sorry to like interject. Maybe people missed this, or maybe you missed this. I'm not talking about the flattening of the orbs. There's an actual like optical lensing kind of, you would have like, you know, if you're looking at through something through like a full glass of water, you know, like a refraction. You know what I'm the video.
Yeah, I mean, you may have to send some screenshots. You're breaking up a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah. So you can actually find this yourself. And unfortunately, I'm driving, but I'm happy to send you screenshots later. Right after all three orbs are orbiting the plane, there's a moment when you can see the plane pass in front of a cloud, and you'll see an optical distortion, which suggests that there's a field being created around the plane. It's clear. So I'm not talking about the drone, you know, with the colored false RI. I'm talking about the one that looks daylight but isn't dark. There, you'll see when the plane goes in front of a cloud, there's a lens distortion which would be consistent with like some sort of field is being generated around the plane due to the orbs. And you also see the absence of that distortion as it passes behind the cloud shortly after that. I would look into that, and it will also help you with any sort of like attempted debunks in the future. I was just interested about that. I didn't know if you had addressed it or if somebody had mentioned it, but it's absolutely there. And then I wanted to know, like, what are the indications that, I mean, it sounds crazy, but this whole thing might have been planned. I know it's easy for a lithium battery to catch fire, but nothing is really charging them, right? They're not in a phone. And the fact that they purposely passed 2 security clearances, you know, like, how far have you gone into considering like that the whole accident or the incident may have been intentional?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to stick to what I can prove, right? Digging into the speculative side of it, especially Kim.com gave me some advice on this. Florence Chang is, when you're doing an investigation, you really try to stick with what you can prove. I really don't even like digging into a lot of the speculative side, because that's the type of stuff that's going to allow people to discredit the case, right? What you'll notice is that all these people that are trying to debunk stuff, nobody is actually attacking the evidence. No one is, not a single person for the most part. What they do instead is they try to speak past me about stuff that I don't generally try to claim. So yes, there may be some more there, but ultimately I'm not the one who can answer those questions. It's got to be the U.S. government who's got to come out and explain, give us a story, right? And then we'll take it. If they want to say, oh yeah, we sabotaged the plane, then, you know, sure, we'll run with that if it fits the narratives. I'm just trying to make it so that the narratives are so narrow that there's very little that they can come out and admit to.
Yeah, that's totally fair, man. Like, just awesome job, and yeah, thanks for sticking with the whole thing. I also think maybe we're looking at a loss of light, right, rather than a zap, an endothermic event. I don't know why we couldn't just have a loss of light, and the white balance is just compensating for it. So those are just my thoughts, and keep up the good work, man.
Thanks, Ulrich. Appreciate you very much, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Ulrich. That's very interesting. We got Penguin next, and then I'm gonna, if you guys want to put hands up, we have a bunch of interesting people who want to also ask questions. So if you want to keep asking questions, just try to stick a hand up. Penguin, you got the floor.
Hey, man, Ashton, bro. Thank you. First of all, I just want to say thank you for the work that you're doing and sticking your neck out in the ways that you are for it. Like, I ain't seen a genuine researcher start getting platformed, and that's just like this in a minute. That just goes to show how, like you said, you're narrowing it down. It's really commendable. Makes me make my want to research better. All that. Thank you for that. My question is kind of two-pronged, kind of asking for a little bit of clarity, and then it's also a little bit of speculation after that clarification. I'm with it all. I'm with it all. Like, it's almost it's past a point of inconclusivity to me, right? So now I'm looking at it and I'm just thinking. I watched the entire podcast that you did with Salvatore Pais. Great work, by the way. I understand what you're saying about the science, man. It like I'm trying to keep up with it as you release things and research, and it's a lot, and it can kind of go over the head. But I was wondering if you could clarify. I've heard you mention before that you would describe this technology as a teleportation, and then there's also, and I understand you're figuring things out as it all comes together, right? So. I've heard you describe it as teleportation. I've also, after that Salvatore Pais breakdown, you've started to pinpoint on focusing on how this could potentially be world destroying, but that makes me ponder, where did the plane go? Did it go anywhere? Throughout all of the hogwash that you've had to deal with these podcasters and dealing with VFX BS, like, let the hoaxer come up at this point. But it's like, what about that point? Where did the plane go? And that's where it's like, I feel like that Salvatore Pais, that's where it's like I'm asking for, I guess, clarification there on kind of like the superconductivity and what you understand of it right now, to be able to say like, okay, what are we seeing happen? Are we seeing interdimensionality travel, things like that? And that's where it gets into the speculation. And I was just wondering where your mind sits at that in this point, not trying to speak in any affirmatives past what the science can observably show us. Thank you so much for the space, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time and all your work, bro. Keep fighting the good fight. Live long in the free world. Rock on, bro.
Thanks, Begman, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, definitely, guys. Check out my Hard Truths podcast tomorrow with Salvatore Pais and Dave Rossi. We'll probably dig more into that. So in the last Hard Truths podcast, Dave Rossi speculated there might be a fourth orb entangled to the other three orbs. And then what would be happening here is we're seeing a quantum entanglement effect, quantum teleportation at the macro scale level that is allowing this plane and the orbs to instantly travel essentially to the location of the fourth orb, which could be anywhere. Doesn't even have to be in the direction of travel of the plane itself. We actually see the plane get sucked backwards slightly from the last frame that we can see it, to the first frame where we see this singularity form. So it could be that it's being sucked backwards in that direction of travel, but we just don't know ultimately. And again, that's going to be speculative. We don't know exactly where this plane could have gone. It could have gone anywhere. Now, if there's two other videos or other videos come out, or we have some other whistleblower come forth and say, hey, I was in the Maldives and this is where the fourth orb was, then we could figure it out. But the circumstantial evidence says somewhere near the Maldives, because we have a sighting at 6:15 a.m. where a bunch of islanders all see the plane there at that time. That's the best I can do for you guys. And one thing I want to say too on that is that I'm not like these other people that are out there, let's say just in the UFO, these UFO, people that are like prominent that try to like, tell you they have all the answers. That's not the case for me. I just tell you what the evidence shows and what I think personally. And then we just try to take the evidence from there.
Hey, can I get one
Thank
in
you.
real
Thank
quick?
you. Thank you for that and focusing on the
let's see.
victims, especially. I'll leave it there and drop to listener. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
focusing
Penguin.
on
I don't have a hand. I
restituting
don't know if
that.
I can get one in.
Yeah, let's get Old Chew. All right, Old Chew.
Yeah, Old Chew. And then I think Praying also was waving, which I think is also a hand up. So we'll get to him soon after. Nice to meet you,
So
Old Chew.
yeah, Ashton, amazing job. I'm 55. I've been lurking ever since I was like 8 years old. And honestly, this is the first thing that brought me out into the internet. You can look at my Twitter. It's been bare until you started doing things. I've never seen anything like this. So amazing job. I can't say that I'm convinced because I'm such a cynic, but I've never seen anything like it. So amazing job. All your evidence is just really compelling.
Thanks, Old Chew.
My
Go ahead.
question is, when you start looking at the payload, like you said in a podcast or several times, I believe, you wouldn't show this hand unless there was a really compelling reason to risk everything, to show that you have this technology. And so you see that these connections to room temperature superconductors, and then it starts to connect to the Rothschilds pretty soon, and then you're entangled with Lockheed and CIA. Like, first of all, be careful, my friend. Be very, very careful.
Yeah.
And then next of all, I really think the people you need to be talking to are the disclosure people. This is exactly what they're pushing back against in Congress right now. They don't want people to know that we have this tech already.
Yeah, so I want to speak on some of that. First of all, I have a feeling that I'm not going to die of old age, but that's okay. I've come to terms with the consequences of all this. I do try to avoid talking about some of those contractors because I think that's the way you get disappeared. And I agree. I think that this needs to be in Congress. I think this does go hand in hand with disclosure. What I was just talking to Dave Rossi on his podcast, Generation Z, earlier today, is we actually talked on some of those points you just brought up, which is I don't know that Congress even knows what's going on. Like I watched the Matt Gaetz UAP hearing piece. I actually had quoted it, and then just 2 days ago, he put the same clip up on his as Twitter, and the clip basically says that he's the only one in Congress who's seen these videos, and he says it must be alien technology. And I'm just going, wait, dude, do you not know who Lockheed Martin is? Do you not know what these guys are doing? Like, this is not. I think this is them, not aliens.
Well, it's not
like,
surprising.
So that's the part that scares
you're
me. Go ahead.
either an idiot or you're compromised. It really feels like you're one or the other.
Yeah.
You're either completely clueless or you're on the payroll, or afraid for your life.
Yeah. In terms
Or
of the
you-
Congress, you mean, right?
Yes. Because like whoever is able to have any sort of sway, because these doors are closed. We have the president can't go there. The Congress people with top secret clearance are shut out of these places. It's like they have their own government. Not like they have their own government. They do have their own government.
Yep, and I was trolling the DOE last night while I had too many drinks. But what I've been told too is that the DOE has more power than the president.
Absolutely.
That they can shut the president down. And I think that if you look at the presidents from my lifetime, going all the way back to Clinton, it seems like everyone that has come out for disclosure like gets the call the moment they go into office, right? And then they start getting coy and weird and silent about it.
It's been since
all
Carter.
of them on either side of the spectrum. Yeah, and that's probably much further, right? Just that's my experience from me personally. You guys are probably a little bit older than me. One thing I want to say as well, though, is I hear a lot of great stories that give me a lot of strength, especially ones where people talk to their older family members and they tell them, hey, this guy's been disclosing this information. And they go, I knew it was out there the whole time, right? And they've been lied to their whole lives. Like, that's the stuff that gets me emotional. So
Well, Ashton,
I really appreciate your insight. Thank you. I'm going to need it probably. But yeah, we're going to do our best here. We've got, what I will say that maybe give people hope is that I've got very powerful allies that I have started to connect with that are trying to back channel into talking to some of these congressmen and other prominent figures. Again, you guys have seen some of the influencers. And if we can convince them that like, hey, this is something that needs to be talked about. I think the approach is, again, we don't need more UAP hearings. We need conspiracy hearings about these third-party contractors that are hiding this technology from us. And that, I think, will open the door to these reverse engineering programs that I think must be out there, that they are, that's how they're able to get this technology. So thanks a lot for that question, Old Shoe. Appreciate you, man. Let's get a few more in.
Yeah, Prayan, you were waving. Put your hand up if you like, but would you like to speak at this time?
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I'm not on the app, so I'm not able to wave. Ashton, just want to let you know three things, and I'm just going to be real quick with this. My wife and I caught your interview, The Space with Kim.com, that you did a few weeks ago. We were blown away. Just really amazing presentation. We love the way that you do your research. I've been doing research on other subjects for years, and I always respect people who do solid research, come to good conclusions, take the evidence, put it together, make logical conclusions, don't jump unnecessarily to unfounded conclusions and ideas and sensationalize things. I think your presentation was really good. And I also want to let you know, I took the audio from that space with Kim.com and I downloaded it, and I synchronized it with your YouTube live stream, which has all the graphics and the images on it. And I produced a 3-hour video. If you'd like, I can send you a link to that video so you can download it and upload it to your YouTube channel. Because the conversation with Kim.com was really good, but it didn't have any videos or images to go with it. So that video that I did has the video from your YouTube and the audio from the space together. And if you want, just
awesome.
hit me up and I'll send you a download link to the video. That's the third thing I wanted to talk about real quickly is just the discussion about the smoke coming out of the aircraft on the infrared. I don't think it's smoke, and I'll tell you why. and I don't have a degree in fire science, but I did work as a firefighter paramedic. If you look at a fire with your natural eyes, what you see mostly is you see a lot of smoke, especially during the daytime, and you see a little bit of fire. But if you look at, put on some infrared imaging and look at the fire with the infrared, you're not going to see the smoke, because relative to all the gases that are burning and products of combustion, the smoke is cooler than everything else around it. So in an infrared imaging, the smoke, you don't see the smoke. Infrared, what it shows is it shows the products of combustion. And if you know anything about chemistry, lithium metals, magnesium and lithium burn at a very, very high temperature. So I suspect that what you're seeing on that infrared imaging is actually just the heat signature coming off of that very, very hot fire with the lithium batteries, and not really smoke. I just don't think smoke would show up on infrared. And that's all I have to say. Thanks, man.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. And I just followed you, so you can send me that link if you want. I think that we will look into that more. I am very confident that what we're looking at is smoke, and I think that when we can't compare this to smoke from a fire, we can't, like, if I'm burning wood, right? We're talking about lithium-ion battery fires that produce very toxic chemicals and smoke that come out of them. That's very dark smoke as well. My guess is that when we dig into those chemicals, we find that those chemicals do show up on IR. But again, was something we'll dig into a little bit more. Ultimately, the other reason why I'm so confident is that we've ruled out everything else, right? Is it exhaust that we're seeing there? I'm not sure that we would see that type of exhaust there, but it's certainly still possible. I'm not going to completely rule it out. So more to come on that for sure. I appreciate all the input that people have on these details.
Cool. If you don't have a follow-up in the meantime, stick around if you have more questions. We have NC Boy. You have the floor.
Real quick, I'll just say I'm sure Ashton would appreciate it if you did that same thing for this space too, because I think he was having trouble streaming it. Just throwing that out there.
Hello, Ashton. Obviously, nice to chat to you on the space. Obviously, I've texted you on X quite a lot about this, and my interest has been into the cargo. I know it's different to the whole theory that's ongoing about why this occurred, who done this, but I do think the fact that Agilent, who were Hewlett Packard, I think because of their waybills being missing from the investigation, and they're the only two missing, I only feel that they must have had some involvement either in the tech involved, because if you look at their capabilities, they make NMR technology, which is nuclear magnetic resonance machines, such as spectrometers. They make a lot of satellite equipment, transponders, receivers, things like that. They make equipment for Inmarsat. They make equipment for the DOE. Also, they're involved in fusion as well. You know, they've got a lot of capabilities out there. The fact that, as I say, I think we have been looking at the cargo and those two waybills are missing. My thoughts, again, speculation, is either it's their cargo that's caused the fire and they're trying to cover up the fact that they brought the plane down, or they suspect they brought the plane down. Perhaps they're not aware that something else happened to it. And because they are involved in Inmarsat software, the satellite software with the signaling, I would have thought they've probably got backdoor access to the data, you know, that Inmarsat has got. So there's a good possibility that, let's say, their cargo was the cause of the fire, then they could easily try and cover that up with a spoof data and a hoax story, put it in the Indian Ocean, you know. And I think, as you found out yesterday when I looked at the Inmarsat data, the fact there's only 2 telephone calls to the cockpit, and the numbers, if you actually do a Google search, come back to the Bobcat team, Malaysian Airlines, you know, so it's all verifiable. If you were investigating a missing person or looking for a missing person or a missing child, you'd ring the phone every minute. You wouldn't wait 6 hours and just ring twice. So, you know, I think Agilent, I think their involvement in this is probably more than what we'll probably know. And the fact that they moved all operations to Malaysia in 2014 it could be that the government's looking after the economic interests of the company. That's my thoughts. And there was one other thing with regard to that as well. Sorry, it just skipped my mind at the moment. But yeah, I think it was to do with the data, the fact that the Bobcat team, there was a lot of data going through to them throughout the flight, because it's their job to make sure they hit the slots at the forwarding airport or the leaving airport. So they're constantly monitoring the data, and both calls, there was anomalies just before the calls were made. There was zeros. Just after the zap, 4 seconds later, they rang the cockpit. And at 23:15, for some strange reason, there was 60 lines of data transmitted from somewhere, which I'm surmising probably got through to the Bobcat team, and hence they thought, oh, the plane's not dark anymore, hence they made the second call. And so they've rang the cockpit again, but I say if that was perhaps underground, perhaps there's a reason why there wasn't a full handshake, but it just seems strange that 60 lines of data Inmarsat were unable to use their algorithms to put a distance of where it was at that time, where they're quite confident that the algorithms work on the hour, every hour after 1840. But for some reason, those 60 lines of data bursts were unable to resolve, which let's say just seems strange. So I think that the fact that Agilent have since changed their name again, 6 months after this incident, in October 2014, they changed the name to Keysight. From my point of view, a multi-billion pound company doesn't change names if they're successful. And if you look at what they're involved in, the very successful company, unless they want to sever links from the past, So I think that's quite intriguing also. But top work again, Ashton.
Yeah, thanks, NC Boy. So I just want to cover a couple of things you said. I appreciate all the hard work that you've done as well. It's actually hard for me to keep up with all the investigations you've been doing, given all the comments and stuff that I get. But you did present really two great things recently that I'm probably going to be writing up. I just took some notes just right now so I don't forget. One is that there appears to be only 2 phone calls made to the plane. One is at 1839 UTC, and then the other one is at 2315-ish. And if this plane was going rogue or whatever, why are they not calling more often, right? Why are there only 2 phone calls? It doesn't make any sense at all. So this, again, is going to corroborate this emergency event where they know what's going on. They potentially even have communication with the plane. And then the other thing that you said is that the ping at 2315. So we have this anomalous data that happens. And the anomalous data starts at 1839 UTC. And we see all these zeros go down the board. And then all of a sudden, the next one after 1840 is this 1941, 2041, 2141, 2241, and it's just 10 rows of data after we've seen hundreds of rows of data for all these other timestamps. And then after 2313, the data seems to go back to normal around 2315. But as you just mentioned, they didn't graph this ping data for that time, almost as if they knew that didn't make any sense. So that's definitely something that we should look into more, because this could be evidence that they spoofed all the pings after 1840 UTC. It could also be that it's just misinterpreted, that the plane was somewhere else, right? But this ping data is very sketchy. I'm showing it on my stream right now. There's definitely something going on here at 1840 UTC. So thank you, NC Boy, for all your investigative work. Greatly appreciated, sir.
No problem. Keep up the good work. I'll catch you in the DMs.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thanks, NC Boy. That was really fascinating. I want to, apply your investigative skills to many things. But this first, of course. Shai, you got your hand up.
Yes, sorry. I promise to be quick. Look, I do. Well, sorry. I'm a CGIist. I do CGI, and I understand that you can't mix up 1D, 2D, and 3D without. Well, you can mix it up beautifully, but another CGI has to spot you a mile away. So if the aeroplane was 2D, you couldn't turn it into 3D. So the aeroplane has to be real. The stuff going around it, and this is what I tried to explain. I even made a video to show people a CGI video, and it wasn't a minute before they were taking it the wrong way. I was trying to explain that if you try and tuck something behind something that's 1D on a 3D image, there's a point at which you'd have to stop and start it again at the bottom of the aeroplane to spin it around. And whilst you might not be able to spot that, another CGIS would spot it in a heartbeat. But these items are actually floating all the way around the plane and the smoke, and the smoke should be well, what's supposed to be the contrail, whatever that is. The orbs are going around that as well, which wouldn't be possible in a 1, 2, 3D CGI. So that's what I'd said, and that's the video I put out. But because it was attracting icky, I deleted it. But I'd be happy at any time to put it out. But I don't think you need it, darling. The debate has moved way on from there. It's now honestly more about the facts and the evidence around what you're looking at, and then around what you found outside of this video, and it is enormous. And as far as I'm concerned, I've signed the petition, by the way, to get your get the case before your Senate. I don't know if they allow British voices, but I've signed it, and I hope they do, and I hope everyone else in the room goes ahead and signs it, because what I think Ashton's only been trying to do from the get-go is put all the evidence he's found in front of the people that can make the difference about it, and that everyone, well, literally everyone, should be helping him do that. That's all. Thank you, darling. I'll slip down to listening now, so you can let someone up.
I appreciate you, Shai. I appreciate it so much. One of the things that Shai just mentioned is that really the most difficult part is trying to fake these orbs traversing around the plane. We can actually see that they get distorted when they go through the trail of the plane, whether that be exhaust or smoke as well. So, there's so many small details in these videos is what make them just fully authentic and extremely difficult to fake. In addition to the fact there's no discrepancies on any of these. Like, somebody would have made a mistake somewhere,
Yes.
right? So thank you very much, Shai. Appreciate everything.
Thank you, fella. Speak to you soon.
Oh, great. We got Secret Rare Waffles, video game store, I believe. How's it going?
Doing good. I just had a quick question. I hate to stick on the smoke and all of that. I'm just curious, if there was a cabin fire somewhere, would that not show a hotspot on the plane through the IR?
Yeah, good question. So the thing about this is that these batteries were in these cargo bays that are built to withstand the fires. So it's most likely several layers that is preventing it from showing up in the IR on there. I would agree if the fire had spread to like the passenger cabin, then definitely we should be seeing something on there, which we're not. So that would indicate to me that the fire had not spread throughout the entire plane. And also because if this fire had spread significantly outside of the cargo bays, this plane's going to come down really, really quickly within like 15 minutes. So the fact that it was able to stay in the air for an hour and 20 minutes is already pretty impressive, and really means this fire had to be actively being battled nonstop, probably by the crew. Good question.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. That does answer a little bit of it. Just the amount of smoke coming out does seem like it would be a fairly large fire. And that's the reason why I would question that.
Yeah, and again, I think we have to figure all that out a little bit more. But as we've had people hypothesize, engineers, et cetera, that it could be that the smoke is flowing through the air conditioning units as it's coming out of those cabin or cargo bays where it's being battled, because they have to open the door and get in there, right, and battle those fires. So it's potentially moving around through the air conditioning units and then going out through the AC exhaust ports. That's one possibility that had been proposed to me. But ultimately, it's going to be pretty difficult to tell. And I'm not super concerned about it because we do have a witness that's corroborating the same event. And we have 18 other witnesses that all corroborate a similar event as well. I think that this event, even given just the evidence we have now, still explains what happened to this plane far better than any other story to date. But thank you very much. I appreciate that. We'll look more into it.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Feel free to put your hand back up if you have a follow-up. But in the meantime, we got Rick with a lovely car. How's it going?
Yeah, doing good. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing great, sir.
Okay. Yeah, Ashton, I'd like you to follow me back if you would. I'd like to go over some stuff. Maybe I can talk to you more off this side, but I'll go over a little bit. I've got a background in laser technologies, set several world records in high-powered lasers. The part of your video that really interested me was the orbs, well, a little bit of my background. I'm an inventor. Like I said, it's helped me to create these world records in lasers. I've studied warping space, anti-gravity, using magnets, other superfluids, but I've done a lot of research in this kind of field. But the orbs casting the coldness in front of them, I think that's what you was referring to with the infrared, showing they were actually, it looked like they were warping the space, is how they were traveling around the ship, is what I noticed. I thought that was very fascinating. But one thing in my studies is it would be impossible in teleportation to copy every cell in an object. To do that deep a probe or penetrate an object, you would almost destroy the object trying to analyze it, to copy that object, reform the atoms, which is, some people think that's why you're going to teleport. That's not possible. My theory in teleportation would be you would have a large frequency warping space and time at exact frequency, and you'd have to recreate that exact frequencies at another point in space and time. Not necessarily frequencies, there's wavelengths and all other kinds of stuff that would go into that. But there's a lot of people think you can copy. No, I don't think that's ever going to be possible. You would actually have to open a warp field to create another point, another location in space. But anyway, seeing your orbs going around that, and it was like they were warping the space, and that's how they were traveling around the object. I thought that was so neat. But like I say, I have done some experiments. I'd like to talk to you off the space. I don't want to give too much of what I know out to the public. I don't want people looking into me, but I know with stuff you're bringing out, I'm sure people's going to be on you. So, but yeah, like I say, about 8 years ago, I'd set several world records at high-powered handheld lasers, and the government basically shut me down. So I haven't done it about 8 or 9 years now. So, but I like your work and keep up the good work. Thanks. I'll land my UFO there.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. A couple comments I want to make is that, I mean, people say they're my videos, and I know you don't mean that literally, but I do want to say that, these aren't necessarily my videos. If anything, I'm just a voice for this movement that's out there. These videos have been out there for 9 years. Anybody could act like me, and if for some reason I were to disappear, I would hope that you guys would rise up and take my place. I love the comment about the lasers, Rick. One thing that I have heard is that if anyone does do technology and advancements that broach on this national defense, that they get a knock on their door, and that they either get sucked in or they get told to stop. And that's how they're able to keep this stuff quiet for as long as they've been able to keep it quiet. I think this technology goes back even further than 9 years. I think that potentially we've had this technology for decades, and that they've been keeping it under wraps using very sophisticated disinformation and censorship techniques. So definitely wouldn't mind hearing from you. I do want to keep in mind that I'm at least 50 or 60 emails behind right now on requests on people speaking to me, and it's harder to keep up with the messages, but I will do my best, guys, and I appreciate everybody who reaches out to me with information.
Yeah, you're exactly right. The government, well, they had some government contractors got a large order from me, pretty much on almost every laser I was working on. And then next, about a month later, the Food and Drug Administration gave me a call. So I'll just leave it at that. I feel like I'm no longer doing it now.
Yeah, that lines up with what I've been told. So awesome. Thanks for your efforts, though, Rick, and everything you've done in the past. Okay, I'm going to do override with just about 15 more minutes because I'm going to have to go get some food. It's been a really long day for me as well. But let's try to do as many more questions as we can. And if everybody can, just kind of keep it as brief as possible so we can get to as many people that are out there. And there's a few more people requesting as well.
Excellent. We'll get right to Jim Bob. Welcome.
Hey, thanks. Ashton, my question is, have you gone over all of your data that you have? Have you sat down with a commercial airline pilot to go through this step by step?
Yeah, so I haven't gone through it like step by step, but I have talked to several pilots. I have several that have emailed me as well. And I've learned, that's how I've learned like quite a bit about like the procedures that are out there. And that's how I learned that the first procedure is that you would try to land at the nearest airport. First thing you try to do is just navigate the plane. Like the third thing that you do is try to communicate. And that you would first try to land with your landing gear. If the landing gear is damaged, you're supposed to try to land on your belly. And then after that, you're supposed to try to dump the fuel if necessary as well. And then, the last thing as well would be trying to land in the ocean. They've also corroborated that these types of events would basically mean the plane is doomed. I mean, there's very low hope of survival in a lot of these types of situations, but you try to do your best with them. And the fire scenario as well. I think that people have told me that it's going to be very risky to dump the fuel. At best, it's an extremely risky situation to try to do that. And I've talked to engineers who've worked on planes as well. So we do have quite a few people that are corroborating this. This isn't just me out here speculating on all this stuff. It does come from people that are very knowledgeable.
Yeah, the reason why I ask, I have a dear friend of mine. Him and his wife are both commercial airline pilots. Flown this exact same aircraft for years and years, and we've been. I mean, since the day MH370 vanished. I mean, we've been going round and round and round for years, and you know. So if you would like a commercial airline pilot to go through this with you step by step, man, I'm more than happy to hook you two up.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, they can reach out to me in email. My email is mh370x@proton.me. Just keep in mind, like I said to the last person as well, like I'm doing my best, but I've got far more requests and people reaching out than I can deal with. But I do appreciate every single person who has been reaching out to me with information around the case. I am trying to get back to them, and all the emails that I'm behind on, it's probably going to take me a little bit. But as things grow, it becomes more and more difficult. But I just want to repeat again that I appreciate everybody that's out there that's supporting, passing information, corroborating information, trying to confirm things as well. So thank you very much, Jim. Okay, who's next? It looks like Abdurrahim. You got your hand up?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. So hi everyone. Thank you for letting me in. Hi Ashton. So yeah, I like what you did. Like your work is amazing. I have a question concerning like the original video you guys found. I'm wondering if it has any audio or like any sound, just for like the forensics concerning the main Zaham, because if it has like some audio, you can use it forensically for dating, like to date the video when it was done. Yeah, so that's my question.
Sorry. Yeah, we have people looking into it pretty heavily. Now, I would say out of all the investigators, the person who's probably contributed the most is a guy named Punjabi Batman from Reddit, who is not on Twitter at all. I have direct communication with him, though, and he has looked into the videos in a huge way. I don't think that we have seen a lot of forensic data related to it. I mean, there's just not a lot to pull from it. But we've tried to pull as much as we can, and we also don't necessarily have access to the source as well. We have access to the ones that have been uploaded. So I am going to be probably posting some more additional information that has been uncovered recently, where there's like a distortion or like graphical effect that happens when they close the video, which is pretty interesting, as well as when after the video goes dark in the satellite video, which is about halfway through, there's just a black screen. But if you change the contrast, you can actually still see the borders of the two side-by-side stereoscopic videos, which may indicate something. But I'm still digging into that to figure out if that's anything relevant or if that's just a red herring out there. So yeah, we have tried, but right now nothing's super conclusive. Can one of my co-hosts bring up audit to audit as well?
Yes, I've been trying to. We will get this done.
He may have to rejoin because we can't seem to get you up audit to audit. Okay, Top Rat, I think you're up next.
Hi, Austin. Hey, I appreciate all the hard work that you've done. It's been phenomenal. I'm 64. I've been sort of on the sidelines since 1972. There's no doubt in my mind that there's something out there that they're not telling us everything that of the world we live in. Let's follow this to the conclusion. Let's say that, and I believe all this, and it happened. We have a world that we live in right now with 7 countries that have the ability since 1945 for just the nuclear capability. Now we're going to release to every human being the ability to do what we're seeing here. With a contract, we're going to be responsible. I think we also need to start having conversations at a higher level as to how do we do that. you're going to live in a world where every human being potentially can get mad at somebody else, spin up some orbs, and zap the Earth. I mean, you know, I don't mean to be flippant here, but I think we're starting to understand the complexity of this disclosure thing. How do you release this? How is every human being potentially going to have what we're seeing here? That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Yep. So Top Red, you're one of the first people I've heard bring that up with the type of passion that I want to hear about it, because this is a real tough question, right? Everyone on the Earth potentially has the ability for orbs, potentially has the ability to destroy their own city, potentially has the ability to destroy the planet. You know, how do we prevent us from destroying ourselves, right? This is scary stuff that we need to be talking about, and that's the point of these discussions. That's where I want this stuff to lead to. That's the stuff I want to be talking about, is do we create laws, legislation? How do we make sure that we use this stuff responsibly? Ultimately, what you mentioned is what I think is the ultimate answer for why this is being covered up, is that this makes the most sense for why it would be covered up from national defense, is not just for a strategic advantage, but also because we don't want to destroy ourselves. You know, it may be the answer to the Fermi paradox. Why, when we look up, do we not see civilizations everywhere, right? Maybe if life is everywhere, we should be seeing civilizations everywhere. Maybe many civilizations, when they become technologically advanced enough and unlock this quantum and macro technology, they destroy themselves, right? It's a scary thought.
And I think that's also why so many of the long-term or long-time, the Richard Dolans of the UFO world are starting to have discussions about this consciousness thing. We're starting to realize that until as human creatures, we all socially somehow that we raise our levels so that with this we don't have this bickering between us of things that don't matter. And we have to raise ourselves to a higher level before we'll ever be able to be responsible with this kind of a function.
Yep, I agree, sir. So thank you for bringing that up. I think that's a huge point. I'm glad that's one of our last questions, but we have a few more to do. Laksha, do you want to ask a cool question? Then I want to see if Audit the Audit has any questions, since he was asking to come up.
Oh, perfect. That sounds wonderful. Am I audible? Does that work?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, perfect. Hi, Ashton. I just had a few questions. I'm a physicist by nature, and I was looking at some of the works that you have put in, and I was completely skeptical first, but then I thought that maybe I'll give it a read. And keeping the question really short here, tensively the video, right, doesn't corroborate with any physics-based phenomena that you could be explained. And talking about the quantum macroscopic coherence, it's something that works on very small scales and cannot work on matters as big as an aircraft. Like when you're talking about Bose-Einstein condensate, it needs an absolute zero temperature, right, which is hardly possible to recreate in laboratories, leave alone in a system where it's flying thousands of feet up in the air. Again, coming to the other point about the three papers that you've presented, one being the Princeton one uses Randon's Summerfield model, which is not exactly a standard model, and again a theoretical aspect. So I mean, I kind of miss the physical aspects of it and the physics that you're talking about in this entire discussion, which leads me off to again doubt not only on the corroborating evidence given by the video, but also on the legitimacy in a sense where the physics just does not make sense.
Yeah, so what I would say is you should check out my Hard Truths podcast. I think that what you'll find is what you've been learned to be true is not what really is true when it comes to a physics perspective. The science that we're talking about does not break any laws of physics out, and there must be a unifying theory of quantum and macro. It's simply a matter that we don't know what it is yet. So if you were to think of it from that perspective, then you might realize that there is potentially a way. Now, perhaps there is no difference between a neutron star and an atom. Perhaps that the properties are determined based on, or the behavior is determined based on the properties and not based on the size. And I think that if you were to look at it from that perspective, then your whole outlook would change.
Again, but the point again, it's not about perspective anymore, because the question now, continuously harbingers on upon the actual fundamental laws of nature, right? Because there are certain things that cannot exist and certain things that cannot coexist, because these are things that work in a very different way. Like for example, if you're talking about, let's say, what you're talking about is essentially unifying the gravitational field theory, or maybe a unified standard model, which in itself is something so huge that would have been in academia long way back before a practical application of it has been developed. And coming from a physics background where I've been engaged in the same particular field of interest that you're talking about, predominantly quantum information, quantum chromodynamics, I'm particularly sure that there are certain laws of nature which cannot be harbingered in a sense you are talking about.
Well, that's your opinion, and what I would say is if you can explain the double slit experiment, you can win a Nobel Prize. And what I would argue is that you should take a look at my Hard Truths podcast, sir.
Listen, it's not. The Young's double slit experiment has been proven.
So I appreciate it, sir, but I'm not going to argue about it. You can take a look at my Hard Truths podcast if you want to learn more. And if you want to keep your mind closed, that's also your choice. No one's going to stop you. Let's go with some more questions. So Audit, do you want to speak up?
Hey, Audit, can you hear us? So you look like you
Oh,
have a
yeah,
very interesting
yeah.
account. Would love to hear what you're all about and also what's going on in terms of your thoughts on MH370x.
Am I audible? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, hear you good, buddy.
Cool. Sorry. So first of all, Ashton, great work, man. It's a pleasure to actually speak with you. I've been following your work for quite some time now, probably since the beginning. I just wanted to say that I haven't noticed a lot of people mention the appearance of the third orb in the satellite video. And I was just curious, is that something that you know about? Is this well known in the community? Is this something that just slipped by me? Just wondering if you had seen that, if you were aware of that, or if the community was aware of that.
So wait, can you just reiterate? What do you mean by the third orb? Because we see three orbs. Do you mean from where it comes from, or sorry?
Yes, yes. So when at approximately 22 seconds of the satellite footage, when it pans after the second orb has arrived, the third orb is sitting on top of the ocean, and it does a quick motion, and then it joins the other orbs. It's just sitting as like a pale white dot on the ocean, and then once it gets into frame, it makes a very erratic movement, and then comes from the opposite side to join the others. And I was just curious if that was something that was already known.
Well, I'm looking at my stream and I don't see that.
See, right
I mean,
there.
if you can point it
I'll
out,
tell
maybe
you
send me
what.
some screenshots later. But yeah, right now I don't necessarily see that. I do know the second orb for sure comes from the water and shoots up,
Right.
which is really weird. But I couldn't really tell where the first orb and the third orbs are coming from.
The third orb is there. It is sitting right out in the middle of the left screen. Well, I guess both screens since it's stereoscopic. But I'm mostly focusing on this left screen. And as it does this pan, after the second orb joins, you can pause it at 24, 25 seconds. And you can actually see the other orb sitting on the top of the ocean. But what I'll do is if you can't locate it, I will do a video, put a circle around it, kind of show it, and then I'll share it with you privately so you can check
That'd be great, man. Yeah, am I not following you? I'm following you now, so you can DM me when you want. But yeah, thanks a lot, Audit. I appreciate you being in the chats last few streams, nights, and following along, man. It's always good to have big influencers and what on investigating the case and getting the evidence out there. So I just want to say appreciate you as well as everybody else who's been out there, going through the evidence. So appreciate you very much, sir. Are there any last questions before we close it out for tonight? Oh, I see
I have a
Kim.com's
question.
here. I'm going to pull him up real quick as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. How you doing? You're not familiar with me. I'm getting familiar with you. I saw you on InfoWars, and I was just kind of curious. My question would be, can this technology be used for incoming missiles?
Yeah, so definitely check out my interviews with both Bob Rossi or Dave Rossi, but more importantly, Bob Greenyer, if you want to know about that. Bob Greenyer basically says that this could be a perfect defense mechanism where we could just completely wipe out any type of nuke or missile that were to come at us, and that we could just disintegrate it essentially or deatomize it and have the byproduct move somewhere else. This could even explain why we haven't been developing a lot of anti-missile technology recently, is that we just have this ultimate defense weapon sitting there. Some of the other applications, I think I have them up where I can go over them real quick. Yeah, I do. So we have annihilation that we could cause from this. We can do teleportation. We can have faster than light communication. We can create fusion power. Free energy we might be capable of it. Force fields and cloaking are possible. medical healing, which is one of the things that I thought was just absolutely incredible. You know, if I would be nice if I could live for another 100 years, but I have a feeling, like I mentioned before, won't be dying of old age. And then lastly, again, the doomsday weapons that I think that Rad was speaking on earlier that we really need to have as a conversation. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of huge implications of this stuff, and this is why it's very important. I also think that we can actually recreate this, and that's why, you know, if this were to die down or slow down, then probably I would try to use some of my resources to get funding so that we can actually prove this technology in a lab. Like one of our last speakers, I think there's a lot of people out there that, from a fundamental academic perspective, that this has been hidden so long from them that they don't think it's even possible. But the way we get around that is that we prove that it's possible, that we actually go and experiment it and show it to be real. Any follow up on that?
No, thanks a lot. I appreciate you answering my question.
And I think we will let Mello or Red Panda, do you have any last comments? And I think that we'll let, if Kim.com wants to say something and before we close down, we'll probably let him have the last word. But I'm starting to get tired, need to get some food. I just, once again, want to appreciate everyone of you being here. So do my co-hosts have any last thoughts?
I'll just say real quick, great space. What Audit said was also beautiful, how open source this has all been, like all the different people making GIFs of comparing things or maps and whatnot. It's very beautiful to see happen in real time.
Thanks, Panda. It's great to have you here. It's great to be here. I really appreciate all the researchers that have hive-minded this so far. It's really an honor to have Kim.com, and I want to say thank you for all you've contributed to this mystery and solving it on such a massive level. But I'm mostly here to listen to what you guys have to say right now. Vink has his hand up. Would love to hear, of course, from Kim as well.
Yeah, I think we're not going to do any more hands up at this point. If people have already asked, then, you know, we've heard. Sorry, we'll have to take it for another time. I just don't have infinite time tonight. I also, just before Kim speaks, if he wants to jump in, I just want to thank him and everybody else who's put out all the information out there onto the huge groups of followers. We definitely would not be here without all of that. I also especially want to thank him for coming up with the great idea of having the bounty, once again, right now up to $145,000 to find the supposed hoaxer. So anyone who wants to debunk the footage, the only thing you should be focused on is trying to find the supposed Banksy hoaxer who made these masterpieces and presenting that source data to collect that $145,000. Anybody who's not focused on that, trying to debunk it, is doing it from a dishonest angle. If we can figure out who the leaker is, because they're real videos, then the minimum anyone else can do is find out who the hoaxer is. So go ahead, Kim.com, if you have any last thoughts. Thank you very much for being here, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm just jumping in real quick to say that a friend of mine messaged me earlier and says he wants to add another 100K to the bounty. So that would put it to almost 250. Whoever has any information about where these videos came from can grab that bounty. Yeah, so it's going to be a lot of money. And also, Ashton, I just want to thank you for going on all these podcasts, being such a transparent, open guy, talking to anyone, listening to all the criticism, and providing, insights. And that video that you posted today with the cloud comparison, I think just makes it even harder for those that are attacking you to say that this is some kind of CGI creation. So, keep going, do your thing, and I applaud you.
Thanks a lot, man. Wow. I'm going to have to make a new post later tonight after I get some food. So $245,000 on the line. Find the hoaxer, guys. No excuses. Find the hoaxer. Bring the source material. Proven that the work that they did here. You guys can collect it. You can tell how serious we think these footage is real and what's on the line here, right? If this footage is real, it's going to reshape the whole world out there. So once again, Kim.com just doubled it up. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, but don't tweet it yet because it's a private message that I got. Someone wants to put up that extra money. So let's wait for him to come through with that commitment. He will message you directly. Your DMs are open, right?
They're not. So if you just want to DM me the person, I'll follow them so that they can message me later.
Yeah.
Awesome, Kim.
I'll do that right after this. Okay, keep going, man.
Thanks, man. So, okay, closing thoughts. Once again, I want to thank Kim.com. I spoke to him personally before he came out in support of the videos, went through the evidence with him. We spent like 2 hours talking through it, going through it all. I think he's a very logical and rational person, similar to myself, somebody who wasn't involved in these communities ahead of time, but saw these videos and how important they were potentially to society and the world in general, and has been extremely generous with his time, support, influence, and of course his money that he's thrown in for this bounty. I can't wait to see where this goes and how far we can take it. And I just want to appreciate everybody once again for being here, following along with the case, getting the word out, and everything that you guys do. I love you guys all so much, and it just means so much to me, honestly. So thank you guys. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and feel free to check me out on my streams. Make sure you're following Kim.com, Red Panda, Mello, and everybody else who's been supporting. Let's just make this community amazing and better than anything else that's out on the internet. Have a great night, everybody. Peace. Okay, everybody who's in the stream, thank you very much for being here. That was huge, guys. If you heard that at the end, oh my God, Kim.com coming up huge. 245,000 potentially coming down the pipe once I hear from that person directly. Wow, I gotta go celebrate, guys. This is going to be awesome. So I'm probably actually going to come back on here in a little bit after I get some dinner for a quick recaps stream tonight, but maybe not. So just again, want to thank everybody who's on the stream right now. That space I think was just super spicy, super huge. That was awesome. I'm just on cloud 9 right now. And yeah, this has been awesome, guys. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace, everybody.